So the date is the 3rd of November 2025. We are on Kitab At Tawheed, 54th session. The date is the 3rd of November 2025, as I mentioned. We are volume 3, chapter 6, page 49, chapter subject, What is a God? So reading from the text. So given the preceding chapters, one may ask, what is a ilah, God, deity? Here we reiterate and emphasize some of the uncertainties we derived at thus far. To begin, the first fundamental truth is that the concept of uluhiyah, divinity, can never, under any circumstances, be devoid of either autonomous agency with absolute free will and independent choice, particularly with regard to independent creative power, by free will and independent choice, and inherent superiority and dominion by free will and independent choice. Autonomous agency is a concise term for inherent ability to act, or the notion of generation from another divine being, meaning affiliation to the divine type or divine genus.
Regarding offspring, this is the original types. There are types by association like asnam and so on. That's secondary. And this is the primary meaning. Yeah.
Okay.
When I edit the book, inshallah, I will add this, that there is the secondary things that they are not fundamental. The fundamental is two, and then the sanam or something is having a connection and being a house of this or containing this or having that in its womb, like Maryam and so on. That's secondary. So, yeah, carry on.
Regarding the fundamental truth, it is also definitively certain, based on the aforementioned undeniable proofs, denial of which could render a person outside of Islam, and indeed outside of reason itself, that the concept of uluhiyah refers to inherent attributes of the being called ilah, regardless of the existence or non-existence of other beings and their actions, or the relationship.
We may make it like say, not his inheriting himself, but according to the believer, we calling him or perceiving him as an ilah. If he believes that in him, even if the reality is different, we are not about what his belief in that entity. If he believes have free agency and can create and take his universe and go away, independent if he believes it's eternal, not eternal, it is a rebellious shaitan, whatever it is, then he gave him a divinity. Although in reality, they are not that. We're not talking about the reality. We take of the belief of the believer who call him ilah. The same if some people believe, and also the jinn sometimes believe that as they express clearly in Surah Al-Jinn, they seem to be some of them or some of these that told them, you are able to run away from Allah. So you have independent agency, and you can escape his hand. He will not be able to get you. That's as bad as creating and go away with your creation. So they say, we know now, we have been misled with the devil, our leader was lying to us. So they believe that. Is the reality? So no, they now recognize the reality. But the time who was believing, they believe in themselves or some of them to be having divine characteristics. You see, that's connected to the belief. But this precautionary insertion may make the sentence a little bit clumsy. So we say, we may make the sentence, the one who is believed in that he has this and this and this. And according to the believer, he is an ilah for them, according to the definition of the Quran. Because there have been mistakes. I mentioned that the Wahhabi have mistakes. They think the Quran says about the idols, criticizing their belief in idols, and that they are stones, they don't see, don't do anything. But the problem is that I don't know how this come in their mind. They think that's the belief of the mushrikeen is like that. Not what Allah correcting their false belief. It's catastrophic. But since that happened in the universe, in the real universe, and it's happening by people even who are supposed to be having some brain, obviously they have no brain, then we have to be more cautious and make the sentence a little bit more complicated to exclude other things. Yeah, but I'm here going straight forward, assuming this will not happen to anybody who has any brain. So carry on. So the ilah is the one of agency and can't get away and so on. In reality, but as itself in the no, in the belief of the one who regarded him as ilah. Good?
In this sense, the definition must exclude any explicit or implicit reference to the actions of creatures, whatever these actions may be called, and even exclude reference to the existence of those creatures altogether. Thus, uluhiyah includes attributes and intrinsic considerations of the being in question. If that being is
Yeah.
eternal, then it is a deity from eternity, and it remains a deity as long as it exists. If the being is generated or created, then it is a deity from the moment of its creation or generation, and it remains a deity as long as it exists. None of this has anything to do with the actions of the worshippers.
Or the believer in them that they have these attributes. But their action is irrelevant. The fundamental point, their belief is the relevant one. The content of the belief, what they believe of that, about this entity in question.
It's it's almost like a pet. A cat. A cat will remain a cat whether you pet it or not. It's the
No, I mean,
attributes of it.
the problem is that the definition of the Wahhabi of Ilah, that's the Ma'bud, the one who's worshipped, meaning he can be called Ilah only if someone is worshipping him, is not intrinsic in him, in the action of those believers. That has to be excluded. Otherwise, we will fall in the catastrophe and the fallacy, almost it's itself actually a statement of kufr, as we will verify later, that an Ilah is the worshipped one. No, has nothing to do with worship with any activity. Ilah, in abstract term, for the one who said this is our Ilah, I mean, he, even if he has a confused idea, but he means that has some kind of independent agency of creating, running away, getting his kingdom, and this does not necessitate necessitate that. That's the reason. This is if there is no God, nature is eternal and so on. He doesn't have an ilah because nature is not a free agent; it's acting by necessity, so it cannot be classified. It's eternal and so on, but it's not really cannot be classified in the view of the atheist as an ilah. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
This is so obvious and almost circular that the people fall in circularity because of it. It should have been no circularity whatsoever, but that's it. Because if you want to flesh it out, the sentence will become complicated, and you need to precaution. That's in the belief of the believer, the content, or not in the belief, the act of believing, but in the content, what he thinks this entity has an attribute. Not that he has doing something to them or not doing something to them, just the attribute he thinks belongs to the same entities. Good, carry on.
Yep. Thirdly, if uluhiyah is defined according to a correct Quranic understanding, which is necessarily a definition entirely independent of the actions of creation, created beings, whatever those actions may be called or classified as, and even independent of the existence of those creatures altogether, then it is conceptually prior, necessarily and inevitably, to the definition of ibadah, worship. The concept of uluhiyah is the original and fundamental concept, and it is logically and intellectually prior to the concept of ibadah. Therefore, the concept of ibadah, according to the necessities of sense and reason, must be A. built upon the concept of uluhiyah, dependent upon it, and related to it. This is the certain truth upon which we will provide definitive proofs. All this is B. It must be entirely independent of the concept of uluhiyah. This is impossible, both rationally and legally, as it leads to egregious consequences, one of which is that worship of other than Allah would not constitute shirk unless that other was a deity, and if not, it would not. This is utterly egregious, contradictory, and in conflict with human nature and consensus of rational beings, as will become fully clear in the following discussion. Thus, a necessary and inevitable approach to defining the ilah is to say, the ilah, God, deity, is the being with inherent ability to act by free will and absolute choice, entirely independently from others, and among the most specific of such actions are creation and dominion. Or the ilah is the being generated from another deity, making it a member of the divine type or genus or divine genus. Okay.
These are primary types. So that's the ayat al-mumana'a specify these two types and respond to the original type by saying it is impossible, because if that would have been the case, there are really in real world, in real reality, multiple gods. They would counter each other and completely negate each other action, or one of them will dominate and take his creation, and the other will be defeated. But if defeated, they cannot be ilah. They're free, and the power is limited by the other one, so they're not ilah. So either some of them are supposed to be really in reality not ilah, or If it is truly there too, nothing, no creation will be any there. There will be no universe, nothing. But we see the universe is consistent and homogeneous and well connected, so it can't be. There is nothing indicating that there are two kingdoms separated and the guys are fighting and nobody defeats the other for all eternity. Yeah, good. And the other type is that from this, maybe he may have offsprings. And the ayah does not bring any evidence against Bashatan, just the report of the alleged father denying that he has offsprings and any possibility of genus. But even also asserting the fact, but connecting it to being Samad, being perfect and indivisible, have no hollows, because to have offsprings, the only way is that by splitting, by procreation, by creating semen. There's nothing conceptually possible except by these things. And all of these will contradict Samadiyya, absolute indivisibility. There can be no offspring or some spring for you unless you are divisible or something can cut away from you. If it's something away can cut from you, you are not Samad and you are not even Ilah in the first instance or anything like that. But it's the proof. Not that some people in their mental incapacity may believe otherwise. So when the Trinity, the strict Trinity, that Isa is born from his father before time, and they say clearly born, not created. So they call it eternal generation, is a contradictory term itself. But even that doesn't show the contradiction. But even that, their belief, even if it's false internally, that make Isa a divine being, which is only shared with his father, the divine substance, which does not exist. That's the refutation. But the belief itself is a shirk, is a believing in another deity, not it's another deity. Whatever they play around and try to know, it's two faces of the same deity, and all these attempt to interpret this Trinity, all of them will fail, because none of them will work. Because the theory will be two deities. No, it's not a deity, it's only one. But the Father is not the Son. The Son is not only but the Son is God. The Father is God, and so meaning they have the same substance. But this is impossible again. So to distinguish between the proof and the belief of the people. But if they believe even this absurdity, that's shirk and kufr by itself, and reject the evidences coming to them. That a belief content itself is wrong does not mean the one who believing in him is exonerated or something like that. Then there will be no mushrik and no kafir, and all the Quran does not make sense. Okay, I'm just going in picky points, but some people go to the picky level, either from the other camp of the Wahhabi or the other camp of the Christian, for example.
With the text, this is our precise definition, which is completely free from the term ibadah or any action of the creation as previously established. Here the discerned reader can refer to the previous volume in the series, in particular part 5, which exhaustively covers the historical reality of shirk among the Arabs. In short, you will find that all deities of the Arab mushrikeen, when analysed thoroughly, fall into one of these two categories. The vast majority being those purported to be born of Allah, offsprings, or in the form of sons and daughters. A minority belong to the other type, those with full independent agency, such as the supposed god of evil, whether eternal or created in the dualistic beliefs of the Magians and heretics. In fact, this situation, or something close to it, applies to all mushrikeen, both ancient and modern. Nevertheless, some have insisted on the forced and flawed inclusion of the term ibadah, worship, in the definition, as did Imam al-Razi, who stated the deity, the one who has the power to perform actions, and if he were to perform them, he would be deserving of worship. This is found in Tafsir al-Razi, where he states, fourth, some have said that ilah is not simply the object of worship, but in fact al-ilah huwa alladhi يستحق أن يكون معبود. The ilah is the one who deserves to be worshipped or deserving of worship. However, this too faces the objection that he would not be the ilah of objects, beasts, children, and the insane, nor would he have been ilah in pre-eternity. A third option is that it means capable of such acts which would make him deserving of worship from such as can perform it. Now, know that the first two opinions mean that he was not ilah in the pre-eternity, whereas he was indeed ilah in the pre-eternity according to the third. Furthermore, the following has been cited in Tafsir al-Razi. Some of them said Al-Ilah huwa al-Ma'bud, yet this is mistaken for two reasons. The first of which, that he, the Almighty, was
That's
already
clear. That's Razi did not make a mistake here. That's obviously clear. Yeah. So read the answer of the Razi, which is perfect. It's correct. There's no way to rebut it in any sense.
Some of them said Al-Ilah huwa al-Ma'bud, yet this is mistaken for two reasons. The first of which, that he, the Almighty, was already Al-Ilah and was not worshipped. Secondly, that he, the Almighty, confirmed in the text of the Quran that there are others which are worshipped by his saying, you disbelievers, and what you worship instead of Allah will be fuel for hell. That is where you will go. Rather, the deity is the one who has the power to perform actions, and if he were to perform them, he would be deserving of worship.
So he's still using the designated worship in the definition. That's wrong. It should not be included, and it lead the same problem with the ilah, the worshipped one, al-ma'bud. But he did not notice the problem in that fully. You should not in the definition say like, for example, the translation of Shahada by many Wahhabis, and they send message to Muhammad Hijab that there's no deity except Allah, no deity worth of worship except Allah. The word, adding the word of worship will really destroy the Shahada. But the people do not know what's going on because they have this Wahhabi confusion. There's no deity whatsoever being worshipped or not worshipped except Allah. It doesn't exist. What they believing to be deities is their imagination. They never existed. Or they are entities who existed, but they don't have the attribute they think is belonging to these guys. So in that sense, they don't exist. Their reality is different what their image in the mind of the disbeliever. Mushrikeen. So that word worship and so on should be cut out, should be thrown away. It is not. Yes, the ilah is the one who can create independently and get away or something like that. That's what we definition, which is no action of his creation or no relation of his creation, but that's his intrinsic attributes, intrinsic probability. Or even if it's a created being himself, originally like some of the dualists, that the devil was created and rebelled or it is a bad idea came in the mind of God, could any man change my kingdom? I mentioned that, but then this idea sprang out and became a devil. But the problem is that this devil became unattackable or uncontrollable by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reason they say that, because this way then the evil is attributed to the devil, not to Allah. So they run away from the issue of attributing evil to Allah. That's to solve the problem of qadar. That's not a solution, but that's not the issue yet. But this way, even it's contradictory because the created being can never challenge the creator, especially the creator is the absolute one. But still, they find that as a good solution, believe that the devil is some kind of a divinity. And in that case, they don't worship him and just love him and support him, but they do sacrifice because they're afraid of him to avoid his evil. Just keep him at bay. So it has nothing. This refutes Ibn Taymiyyah's claim that ibadah is an extreme love with extreme submission. No, because it can be extreme hate. Like those who worship the devil, they are not necessarily loving him. Some of them hate him, but we have to worship, otherwise he will harm us. And those who believe the jinn can run away from Allah, they give sacrifice to the jinn, say, just to appease them, just to keep them at bay. You see, so. But you have to go a little bit more. I wonder how Razi called this, but maybe he did not think about that very thoroughly. Carry on. But Ma'bud is clear. It will be not in eternity. The defining al-ilah as al-Ma'bud is a catastrophe. Is actually by itself the definition of kufr, contradicting the Quran and reason completely. Carry on.
The following has been mentioned in Ibn Sidah's Al-Mukhassas. Furthermore, this is from the text. Furthermore, it was said that the ilah is the one deserving of worship, and it was also said he is the one who is capable of what worship necessitates.
Yeah.
Whoever claims that the meaning of ilah is the same as ma'bud, object of worship, has erred, and the Quran and the Sharia of Islam testify against this error, because all of that proves that there is no God but Allah alone who has no partner, and there is no doubt that the Asnam idols were worshipped during the period of al-Jahiliyyah. Despite being worshipped, they were not considered deities. It has thus become clear that the true deity is the one who rightfully deserves worship and must therefore be worshipped.
Again, here mixing a little bit to say the true deity. We're not discussing true deity. What's the deity in the mind, in the brain, or the empty drum up there in the mind of the mushrikeen. So it has nothing to do with the true. True is then we bring the evidence that if that's the correct definition, like the Quran made it, the one who can get away, etc., then by necessity of reason, then now they have proof. Such things cannot exist. No two of those can exist. So for these who try to solve the problem with evil, so the evil is the doing of the devil. Allah does no evil. Is very pure and nice and lovely. Okay, but this is impossible. Such a thing cannot exist. If the devil really is able to have this divine attribute or divine power that he can get away and create evil in contradiction and in defeat to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, attempt to undermine his power, and Allah cannot get him ever. Independent if the devil is created, not created, or eternal, means there will be no universe, nothing will happen. Forget about it. Or if it after his creation, the universe which existed already by the loving God, which had no evil and so on, that entity will try to destroy it, causing him to corrupt and either. And neither is what we see in the reality. So this means that even this one is not possible. But this is the proof about the truth, not what the mushrikeen believe. Again, here also people, because of the habit of sometimes mix the issue of the evidence that such thing cannot exist with what the mushrikeen believe. The beliefs of mushrikeen are internally Catholic. They don't exist, but they believe in them still, because they are blinded from the truth, or they are dumb, or they are backward, or they not get enough information and things like that. Does not negate that I believe that, which is utterly impossible itself. And that's what defines shirk, that you believe in something which then the Quran give the evidence that your belief is false, but you're content to believe is this, which make you mushrik and make you believe in multiple aliha. That's what I'm saying you. Clean your head from this mess. That's only in your empty brain. By evidence, such things cannot exist. So forsake all of them except the one who is by necessity the one created the universe. Yeah, you see, that's the way it should be done. But if you expand the sentence, it may become dark because it's so fundamental concept that so to summarize, either the fundamental definition that deity is defined by intrinsic attributes of what is the correct one, that's the definition of the Quran, or belong to a genus in these details, and even or represented by idols. That's the secondary things. That's number one. Number two is that the basic thing is worship, and the Allah is the one who is worshipped. That's blatantly wrong and contrary to the Quran and system of reason. Three, that Allah is the one who is supposed to be worshipped, and the Allah at the same time is someone who has attribute make him worthy of worship. So Allah is connected worship connected to Allah. That's so-called circularity. And this circularity is not of the type which is maybe permissible here. What you can say it is what they call it, that the two things are valid at the same time. So the circularity is only apparent circularity. No, it's not like that. It is the circularity that one must be before the other and the other is before the one. That's A must be before B and B before A. That's impossible. That's called vicious circularity. There are non-vicious circularity, yes, because sometimes the definition appears as there's a circularity, that's not circularity. But let me give an example for non-vicious is that the concept of father and son, or offspring and father of the offspring. You cannot say this is an offspring of A, offspring of B, unless B is the father of A. So it looks like a circularity, but the reality is that the concept of father and son are two sides of the concept of giving birth, or procreating by giving birth, or by producing an offspring. So the wilada is the basic concept, and the one side is called the father, the product, and the producer is called father, and the other side is called son. There's no circularity here, which is a vicious circularity. It's perfectly fine, because the fundamental is that there's some called procreation, and the procreation results with the one which the procreation starts from him is the father, and the one it ends to is the son or the offspring. No, it looks like circular, but it's not circularity. Or tahsil hasil. Like water is water. What is that? Water is water. I don't need to define. Water, well, that's what you see. Water is water. Is that what you see? That's it. That's not circularity, vicious circularity. Vicious circularity is that A created B and B created A. That's impossible, because if A created B, then A must exist first, and then B came after him. But if at the same time B created A, that's what called vicious circle, then B must exist before it exists, and the other one must exist before it exists. That's the impossibility. It's internally contradictory. Okay, just a small note about vicious circularity. Usually people say this is circular, meaning the vicious circularity. They really mean the conjoint circularity, which is not a problem, like in case father and son.
Okay.
Because you can say this is the offspring unless it has a father. And you can say this is the father. It doesn't make sense to talk about things being a father unless it has offspring. That seems to be circular. But no, we're talking about the concept of procreation in principle. And it has two sides. That's not a vicious circularity.
In this instance, they're effectively saying that Allah isn't Allah until He creates something to worship Him. He's not, because effectively it negates His own definition before subordinate.
In that case, because saying Ilah Ma'bud, Allah has done Ilah because He al-Ma'bud, meaning necessarily that He, before being Ma'bud, He was not Ilah. What does mean He was not Ilah? Doesn't make any sense in eternity, but He's Ilah always from eternity to eternity.
Due to
depend upon if you're not creator. So it cannot be. But the other one, يستحق العبادة, circularity is a bit deeper, but it's also as bad as the first one. Although it doesn't appear directly. Because you should not, in the definition of al-ilah, have any human action or anything called worship. The moment you have a circularity. So then worship has to be defined separately from, and then using the concept of ilah as a base, and from there you develop the concept of worship. It's completely independent from both are independent from each other, and the worship has to be based on this other approach. Allah al-Ma'bud makes the worship is the basic definition, and the uluhiyya derived from it, which is absolutely impossible and a statement of kufr. And then is worthy of worship. That statement is trying to make this define this and this define this in a way which is viciously circular. Okay, carry on. I'm phrasing it sometimes in the language of philosopher and logician, and sometimes in language of common people. But this is the reason it is. The circularity is so deep and so natural that people do not notice it, because ingrained in the human heart. But if you try to develop it further, like the Wahhabi did it, you fall. If you don't see the circularity clearly, then you are done. You are finished. And you end with the statement of the definition of uluhiyya, which contradicts Quran, which contradicts reason. That's exactly what Wahhabi and partly Ibn Taymiyyah fell in. But Ibn Taymiyyah in a milder way, because he's way too big a brain and sharpness to commit this stupid, trivial circularity. Carry on. Mm-hmm.
The approach of Imam al-Razi and Ibn Sida al-Andalusi may be a plausible one, but they have both essential and formal defects, which in truth render it a flawed definition, even if we were to concede that it qualifies as a definition or an explanatory statement. Further, it is incomplete for two reasons. The deserving of worship may not only be related to the ability to perform certain actions, but also to the possession of certain attributes. Indeed, it may be related solely to particular attributes without any reference to agency, as is typically the case with beings generated from a deity, that is, beings of the divine type or genus. Yeah.
It doesn't cover that. This is out of this definition. So then, a son of a god is then a god by everyone agree that they regard the mushrik and they have a second god. Yeah, that's it. But a son of God is by construction that the offspring of the God are completely in love with their father, completely submissive, so there is no issue of agency, and you cannot refute their existence just by mere arguing that the universe will be split and there will be no universe, or there will be facade in the universe. But you see, so but although they may have no independent agency, the agency is just completely subordinate to their father's agency. But again, still they can be worshipped and honored because of being a deity, because of their intrinsic being from the divine substance, or from divine origin, with the divine family, divine genealogy. You see the point? So that definition this way exclude this type. If you say that Allah is the one who is having intrinsic attributes, making him worthy of worship, then this will not, if you analyze deeper, it will not include the offsprings. So they are not an ilah. So if you attribute a son to a divinity from the same substance like the Christians do, it is not shirk then. which manifestly error, manifestly wrong. Yeah. According to Quran, at least, but also according to reason. So let's carry on.
It is not comprehensive, even if it is exclusive, because it excludes an important and significant type of deity or object of worship, namely beings of the type or genus that is those generated from a divine being, as explained earlier. Second, it is inverted and problematic. It defines the simple, obvious, and immediate through the complex, obscure, and distant. A proper definition should be
Yeah.
the opposite. Otherwise, it leads to
No,
confusion.
it's not definition. It is nonsense, because definition is that you define complicated things by referring to simpler things. Otherwise, it's not a definition. It is confusion. Because worship is complicated. The deity, the division deity independent from worship, is pure and simple and clear. Either free agent and or offspring of a free agent. Ultimately, offspring of civil thing, and then ending with the free agent. That's all of it is. No other things are mentioned. No. And then worship is then acts of to this one, so showing submission, showing respect, showing fear, etc. Then we can talk about these as worship. But we have already established what deity is independent from any act of any worship or any other of his creation. Independent of that. We have established that then. And then we can define then worship independent from the deity is already well established. We define worship based on the will definition clear here. So when you go define God is the free agent or the entity which deserve to worship because of the intrinsic characteristic. Why enter worship, which is a complicated and messy area to define the simple basically, which does not need worship to be. So from technicality, also from economy of and for the beauty of the definition and for economy of reason, it's uneconomical and not required. But actually, it contains, in this case, it contains contradiction. It's as bad as an ilah is ma'bud. But even from a technicality of the definition should be, we define the unclear by using the clear ones. Otherwise, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's not a definition, it's a confusion. Is not a good way to clarify things, because knowledge for finite being is based on that you have fundamental clear things known by immediate perception, by reflecting on yourself internally, and you build on that bit by bit. You don't start with things which is by itself dark and use that for the definition of the things which are obvious. That will be not definition. And clarifying things, that will be confusing things and making them dark. So it contradicts logic and philosophical and theological economy. The same thing like what people use Occam razor, that you make so many assumptions, and some of them are not needed. So they should be dropped from the definition. You go only to that's really needed for the work. Otherwise, you're adding a load which has nothing to do with the job at hand, and making things messy and economical. Okay, carry on.
A proper definition should be the opposite. Otherwise, it leads to confusion rather than clarification. This is because the concept of uluhiyah, divinity, encompasses the concept of ability, will, free choice, action, and independence, all of which are simple, fundamental concepts that are easily grasped by the innate human disposition through internal sense, introspection, and necessities of reason. On the other hand, the actions of worshippers are complex and compounded. For example, the act of prostration to a particular being cannot be conceived without a belief or mental image of the one being prostrated to, held by the one performing the prostration. There is also the existence of emotional and physical states within the worshipper towards that being upon seeing or encountering it, or recalling it in the mind, such as love, reference, or fear of its harm or power, which serve as the motive for the prostration. The direction of intent and will to act in prostration as an expression of those emotional and psychological states within the worshipper cannot be overlooked either. The movement of the muscles and limbs of the worshipper's body to assume the known posture of prostration. Third, it is ambiguous in two respects. Ibadah has not been clearly defined beforehand. despite the significant risk that its definition might implicitly or explicitly include mention of the ilah. If this occurs, it leads to circular reasoning, which
Yeah.
necessarily invalidates the definition. No mention or clarification has been made regarding the actions that the ilah is capable of performing, and which, if performed, would render him deserving of worship. Moreover, the attributes, if they exist, that would qualify the ilah as deserving of worship, have not been mentioned either. Okay, that concludes this chapter. We are now on to the next chapter, which is
So
7.
let's then show uluhiyya and ibadah. There's only three possibilities. Uluhiyya is the fundamental one, simple one, and this is because it can be explained with the basic fundamental concept which we recognize in ourselves by introspection, which is absolute. Because the last one, the only one we can rely on, the ultimate development is not even what we see in the senses outside. Because there's a problem. Is it transported to the eye a certain way? Does the waves of length play a role? Does the eye do some filtering? Well, definitely there's so filtering and see only a certain range. So we are not certain that the things we see is in reality as we see them. Because another animal, human may be relatively the same, but another may seem very different. They may see them in another color. Even humans, someone who have the problem of say color blindness, they see differently. By interrogation, interaction, we recognize that some people called colorblind. That needs some kind of complicated testing, so reference and back reference. So that's so. But internal introspection is absolute. You see in your own conscious mind, you recognize these concepts immediately and fundamentally. So this is the absolute base we can start from. اللي هو the principle of rationalism. It's formulated wrongly by Descartes by saying cogito ergo sum. أنا أفكر فإذا أنا موجود. It is not like that. With the fact that I am mindful is immediately exposing that I am in existence and I have certain basic things ingrained in this. That's anything further that does not exist for me. I cannot do anything more than that. That's the most fundamental, zero absolute starting point. And that from there, we can define ilah from these basic concepts: agency, freedom, which I feel in myself, issue like that. So that's the correct one. That's the one. And then worship has to be defined. What is meaning of worship? What is it? And so on can base, because it's very complex. As mentioned, the issue of sujood is very complex. Direction, niyyah, muscle movement, and so on. Or we define worship first as being fundamental. That's expressed in. It is never said that in this direct nasty form, because you might when say it you are stuck, but in certain things it may say, like for example they say about greeting the flag by standing as a soldier. They say greeting the flag. If you greet the flag, the act that you stand in a certain way, in a formally certain way, with a certain pose, or with a certain silence and so on, makes that honoring a flag like that an act of worship, and that what's being honored, the flag is become then a deity. It become a mushrik. This act makes you mushrik kafir. Some Wahhabi said that. In that case of greeting a flag, because it's a very specific action which relate maybe in people perception, honoring the dastur or honoring the king or something like that in a confused way. That's it. Well, you are not honoring the piece of cloth. You're honoring what it stands for, the things behind it. That's all discounted. Just the mere act indicate that you then transform the piece of cloth and what behind it of symbolism, transfer it into a deity. Well, that's obviously wrong and shocking. That except in such a thing which is not usually, but if it comes to sujood, they get stuck. When they say sujood is ibadah, okay, what happened there? Did the family of Yusuf made ibadah when they prostrated? No, this is honoration. Okay, so there's some sujood is honoration or respect, some is ibadah. Which one should? What's the reason? Here's the catch, which kills them. So if you said it that bluntly like that, but they really said that indirectly when they say al-ilah wal-ma'bud. But they say it in such a language which people not notice the internal ugliness and contradiction. And the third option, they say ilah is defined by being worthy of worship, and being worthy of worship defined by attributes of the ilah. So which one is before one? This is circular, viciously circular definition. That's the only three possible approaches. The two last ones are wrong. The first one must be the right one. There's no other way. Two different concepts with the relation to each other. Is a completely independent, and the similar one, the basic one, is ilah. Then ibadah is based on that, and then he connected always to issues that what is the addressee of the so-called acts of ibadah or acts of ibadah. The addressee is an ilah, established to be ilah on other grounds, not by the acts of it. That's the correct way. And the two others are definitely internally contradictory and essentially they contain by the deep analysis statements which are according to Quran, statement of kufr, and statement contradicting reason also, irrational and statement of kufr. So it's both madness and kufr. But it's so hidden that people, even a big mind like Arazi fell and said, the Allah is the one who has certain capacity and so on, making him worthy of worship. No, drop the word make him worship. It doesn't belong to the definition. It has nothing to do with the definition. You have to define worship independently. Acts and so on, etc., direct to an entity which believed to be an ilah. Then we are in the safe ground. So the ilah is the basic one. So we have to establish what can be regarded as ilah according to Quran and historical. The Quran bring all the type. All of them are mentioned in the Quran. The primary ones, free agency, independent with the free agent is eternal, not created or created. The one created covered by At al-Fasad, and of genus or type of divinity. And then the secondary ones are just relating that this idol is not just a statue, it is a conduit to connect it. And this necessary conduit, so that's like the eye of human, the sanam is the connector to the divine. So the way we can say, you can call the sanam ilah in that sense, but a secondary sense. Or this man, Isa ibn Maryam, became ilah for those who believe in hulul. Because the moment the divine son, the Iqnum, entered in his body, he became then full God and full man, or half, or whatever various heresies of Christian tried to debate and sort it out. But he became then divine, because this body and this Isa became then by harboring or containing the divine liquid or something, divine substance entering in him, which is impossible for can be proven by rational. That's a possibility. And worse, if it is joined with the finite and so on, became something new, which is neither good. That's the point of view of the Coptic Church, that Isa is having one nature. And the reason for that, say, if he is having two nature, is like a body who's carrying that ghost. Then one who died and screamed the ghost is Isa, not the Ilah. The Ilah did not suffer anything. So what's the meaning of sacrificing a human? We said the sacrifice, the Son of God sacrificed. What sacrifices a pure human being body. So it must be they joined this, came the same thing, complete mixing, new entity, which is what Isa ibn Maryam, which is both ilah and God, but one nature and one will. But it's contradiction, horrible contradiction otherwise. So that's the reason these two churches, the two camps are split. The Coptic one is called Monotheism, and the multiple physicists, the Catholic Church, essentially Orthodox and so on. But the Eastern, some of the Egyptian Orthodox and so on, and Indian churches are monophysist. So Isa doesn't have two natures and two wills. There's only one entity, which is a complete mix of divine and which is impossible. But that's proven it's impossible. Does not negate that this making Isa than Ilah. And the final type is similar to Sanam, but a little bit more. Is that Isa was in the belly of his mother. If he was by blowing the spirit in him there, or something of the divine coming in her belly, then her belly, her womb contained a divine being. It's not itself divine. Then it's because it's divine by contact, because it's inside. Then the enclosure must be divided to see these who call Maryam mother of God's mother. They call it why? Because the one faction, important faction of the Christian, which was in the East, and many Mongols were, by the way, an historian. Does as fact, I don't go against Muslim world, is partly motivated by being Christian and in contact with the Pope, especially the wife of Genghis Khan herself. She was an Estonian Christian. Well, that's not an issue. Historically, that is irrelevant for us. Then historians say, no, she's not the mother of God, because he became Ilah on the baptism, out of her womb. So how can you call her mother of God? She's the mother of the human age Jesus, who became later Ilah in the baptism, when the Son descended him and the Holy Spirit came as a dove or something like that. So notice the difference. And this is a big heresy for the Catholics and for the Coptic Church. Because for them, is the moment of conception, so he's in her belly, then he is by contact, she is then mother. She deserves the title mother of God. And she is then divine in that sense. Secondary sense, not fundamental. And the Quran says clearly, أنت قلت الناس اتخذون أمي إلهين من دون الله. Did you tell the people such things? That you are divine in what way, and your mother is divine by becoming divine in her womb? That's the meaning of it. You have to read it more carefully and compare with their beliefs. But the Quran mission is just straightforward. By calling her mother of God, must be divine. Mother of divine must be divine. The father of divine must be divine. Whatever fatherhood defined in that case. In the case of woman, it's clear. If you are in the womb and the womb is a divine, the content, then the enclosure must be infected or by touch. Suddenly it becomes having some divine attribute, a divine respect or something like that, which is always absurd again. But it's not a matter if it's absurd or not matter, but that's what they believe. That's enough. So that's all what's there, and all are answered in the Quran. And none of that, almost 90%, 95% of it has been ignored and neglected, partly by Ibn Taymiyyah in part, and by the Wahhabi completely, and ended in the definition, which really, if we want to be strict, it's a statement. It's not be strict. It is actually like that. It's a statement of kufr, or leads to the kufr. But we cannot say that they are kafir and so on, because clearly they are not aware about that. But the moment they are made aware, they have to step back or they exit Islam, become mushrik. So their tawheed is unfortunately turned out to be shirk, another type of shirk. And this is a result of this miserable division of tawheed into three branches. Actually, the two important branches. The third one is just adding issues or attributes and so on, just to use these secondary issues of theology or aqidah. They're secondary, not fundamental. To bash Ash'ari and bash other ones. So they make it not an issue of dispute about kalam and mistakes in deduction, make it an issue of Islam and kufr, shirk and tawheed, to take it out of that fold. You see the point? That's the reason it's added as the issue of attributes is mentioned as a chapter of tawheed. And that's actually by Ibn Taymiyyah. Before that, they never mentioned it as a part of tawheed. They mentioned in the book of Aqidah, but it's not offered such a way that you would say dispute about attributes will take you out of the fold of Islam, making you mushrik. The ancient Tahawi and so on never said that in such a way. Although it made deduced by long complicated argument, but they never said that. Ibn Taymiyyah said clearly, Tawheed asma sifat, that his divine attributes must be like this, and that otherwise you're injuring your Tawheed. The purpose is that who differ with him about the issues of the attributes and so on are somehow mushrik, not only wrong or sinful. No, they are worse. They are mushrik. So this is just out of transgression and sectarian obsession. The third one. So that is never discussed in the book. This is really not relevant. The relevant one is the two spirit, Uluhiyya and Rububiyyah. That's the catastrophic one, the deadly one. The deadly one. Okay, carry on. So that's the chapter. What's the next chapter?
Next chapter is number 7. God is the one that is worshipped, on page 54. Okay.
We discussed this definition also more in detail. We discussed a bit of it with Razi, but we now go to all the way through. If it's too much, we can skip, but read through it. I will try to minimize the questions. We already discussed that. Carry on. Bismillah.
Okay. Now we turn to the matter of addressing the invalidity of the false statement, which says Al-Ilah huwa al-Ma'bud. The God, deity, is the one who is worshipped. It is imperative to thoroughly dismantle it from its very foundation. To claim that the God, deity, is the one who is worshipped implies that Al-Uluhiyya is not one of the attributes of Allah, that He, exalted and glorified, was not an Ilah for all eternity. Indeed, these are heinous statements of kufr. To begin, 2 statements from Razi will be outlined and then discussed in turn. Each of these statements has been cited in his seminal work of tafsir and will be seen, and as will be seen, contain heinous conclusions if followed through according to the line of reasoning set out. Following that, a third quotation will be presented from Ibn Sidah, and this is from text from Razi. Third, some have disputed the claim that Ilah means the one who is worshipped, citing the following. Firstly, that the Awthan were worshipped, although they were not Aliha, gods. Second, he is God of inanimate objects and non-rational beasts, even though it is not possible for them to worship. Third, he is God of those who are judged to be insane people and children, even though they do not worship that he, the Almighty, is the God of those who are judged to be insane and children, although they don't undertake acts of worship. Fourth, being worshipped does not represent an attribute because it simply means that he is known and mentioned by that person who intends to serve him. On this basis, al-ilahiyya, godhood, would be not be an attribute of Allah, the Almighty. Valid point. That's an interesting point in terms of, yeah. Fifth, it would lead to the conclusion that he was not Ilah in pre-eternity. Inquiry 2, possible derivations. Interpretation A, Alaha, to worship. Those who have said that the name is derived from this.
They go linguistically and so on, but all we discussed previously, that's really all not persuasive. Because even if that derivation is correct or not correct linguistically over thousands of years in the Semitic language, in the time of revelation of Quran, whatever, all of that, Quran replaced it with a correct definition. And Allah, as I said, is the creator of language, the one who initiated them, and especially the Arabic language seems to have been protected by Allah in a certain way and developed in that direction behind the veil. Nobody noticed that, but it is the condition and so on, and the Hajj and the situation in Mecca and around until the Fusha of Quraysh and Khuza'a around Mecca. This is the Fusha, the standard Fusha. A bigger area around this is also Fusha. But if you go far away in the north, you are going to the area of the sons of the other son of Ismail. This area is the area of the son of Qaida. If you go north, like north of Medina or Khaybar up to Sham, that's even the Arabic languages. They have no conjugation and declension or a bit of it. And this is the son of Nabati. This is Nabati. This is not Fusha at all. If you go to the south, it's close to Fusha, but Sayamani Fusha, which has considerable deviation from the Fusha of Allah. So the genuine Fusha is this one. That developed under Allah's eye over thousands of years. When the Quran came, he was ready to receive the divine, and he has the right, as the creator of man and languages and so on in the universe, to redefine things and clarify things. And that's what the Ayat al-Tamanu did it. So all of this history on Alaha, origin, and what's the meaning of verb is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Maybe the verb Alaha is derived from Ilah, not the opposite. We don't know. We don't need to know, because the absolute reference, assuming or not, is assume that the Quran is from Allah. If not, then we have to go to the evidences of Prophet and so on, rebuild again. But if we have assumed that and established it, then based on that, it's impossible to accept any definition which contradicts the definition of the Quran, which can be deduced from the Quran by necessity. So this discussion about Allah and so on, it may be superfluous here, but I should have made it more condensed. In the next final edit, inshallah, we'll condense that. But carry on. Just read through. I will not stop for it.
So continue with this text. He was not Ilah in pre-eternity. Know that Allah is indeed the one deserving of worship as the bestower of all favors in root and branch. This is because an existent is either necessary or contingent. The necessary is only Allah, whereas all else is contingent. The contingent only comes into being by preponderance of its existence over non-existence. So all contingents only exist by his creation, either from nothing or via an intermediary. Therefore, all types of favor which the servant experiences come necessarily from Allah. It is thus known that the utmost of favor comes from Allah. Furthermore, the worship represents the utmost of magnification. Hence we say, the utmost of magnification is only deserved by one from whom the utmost of favor has come. Accordingly, the only one deserving of worship is Allah Almighty. And that's from, I don't know, that's from the Arazi as well, I think.
Yeah.
So this is due now. Further to this, the following has been mentioned in Ibn as-Sidas al-Mukhassas, and this is from that. Allah, the original form of Allah, Allah is Allah. The Hamza was omitted and the Alif and Lam became a necessary substitute. Hence, we are left with the name that is similar to a proper name. That is the doctrine of Sibilwi and the skilled grammarians. Furthermore,
that's linguistic. Linguistic may be true, maybe false, is irrelevant to us. But we have that word Allah as it is the personal name of the divine being, the creator of the universe, the eternal being, the only one. That's it. It is matured, whatever linguistic development and technicalities behind the scene were going on, all may be true, or maybe you can enjoy them and so on, but they don't negate or establish the use of the Quran. Anyway, Allah has been crystallized and cleared for the Arab centuries before Islam anyway. So it's established by the linguistic itself. And the Quran uses it in the same way. That entity which regarded as the supreme God and the father of all other entities and so on. And that's it. That one is one single person. It's like a personal name. Like your name is Abdul Rashid Hamid. Is that for a single person? That's the name. So identify you as a name. That's it. How it was derived? Your father named you Abdul Rashid, and Hamid is maybe a grandfather and so on. That's all irrelevant. Now it is a label. If you put a sticker on you, Abdul Rashid Hamid, that's this person. Has nothing to do. Abdul Rashid means the worshipper of the slave of the Rashid, or Rashid, the ultimate rational is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Perfectly fine. But this has become now a label. It doesn't mean that you're really Abdul Rashid. Maybe you are a good Abd, maybe you are a rebellious. So it doesn't matter. It's a label. So it became now Allah is a label. What's the origin of it linguistically? It's nice, but completely irrelevant. After the revelation of the Quran. Quran made a cut in history of language and in history of reason and naming. And certain other concepts and words in the Quran, the Quran transfer them with other meaning, which is the not the original linguistic meaning. And the Quran and the Sunnah and the Messenger of Allah, they have, Messenger of Allah is just expressing what Allah revealed to him. Messenger of Allah is the one who has the absolute sovereignty even over languages, so he can assign to a word a new meaning and a new and the specific meaning of certain situation that has to be accepted. Otherwise, you're denying that it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Allah is the absolute sovereign and the absolute truth and perfect truth. Okay, so that's it. So the discussion there is nice linguistically, because linguists would love to go on the origin of the language and how it developed. That's all good, no problem. That's a separate science, but it should not be having any overriding or undermining effect on what the Quran has brought and established its attitude in a skilled way. It's established in such a way you have to deduce it and reach certitude by ayat al-tamanu al-fasad. It doesn't establish in the way logician and philosopher establish, because it's not addressed to logician, it does even to the camel boy, to the cowboy, and to the philosopher in the philosophical academy. All of them must be addressed, and there's no way to address all of them except by the language, the way the Quran does it. So everyone can have a share of the understanding according to his level of civilization, linguistic development, how he is educated, and his house, the educated one have more of that, the less educated, less of that. But the core is there, and even if it's just perceived in semi-amorphous way, but the important core is there. The important core is there. So carry on. So, but it may be enjoyable if someone enjoys the issues of Sibawayh and the language and khasa'is and mukhassas. Okay, we can read it, just go through. I will try to stop myself from commenting again as much as possible, because we commented that several times before. But sometimes it's good to repeat these things.
It's good. I mean, we need extended definitions for future.
To reinforce it in ourselves again. Yeah.
Furthermore, it was said the Ilah is the one deserving worship, and it was also said he is the one who is capable of what worship necessitates. Now, this is underlined again from Mukhassas. Whoever claims that the meaning of Ilah is the same as Ma'bud, worshipped, has erred, and the Quran and the Sharia of Islam testify against this error, because all of that proves that there is no God but Allah alone, who has no partner. And there is no doubt that the Asnam, idols, were worshipped during the period of Al-Jahiliyyah. Despite being worshipped, they were not considered deities. It has thus become clear that the true deity is the one who rightfully deserves worship and must therefore be worshipped. Comment and analysis. So this is you. By saying that Al-Ilah huwa al-Ma'bud, the God deity, is the one who is worshipped, necessarily necessitates other insidious and heinous follow-on points. These include that the testimonial of Islam, that there is no God except Allah, means that everything that is worshipped is construed as being a God, or represents some parts of God, or even an idol of God. May Allah forbid that, exalted and sanctified is He far above that. This is one of the most heinous types of kufr. It is the statement of the most tyrannical philosophizing extremists of the Sufis and the clever mushrikeen philosophers who believed in the flawed concept of wahdat al-wujud, al-ittihad al-am, or even al-hulul
الحلول
al-am.
العام. Mhm.
Alternate corollaries to this include that Allah does not exist, and neither do all the other deities. The actions and words that people call ibadah, worship, because of their backwardness and ignorance, and their failure to free themselves from the ideas they inherit from the ages of magic and superstition, are meaningless actions and saying. Rather, that can be
That's what the
considered
communists
only
say.
Rather, that can be considered only physical exercise or psychological treatment or nonsense, verbal statements for entertainment, nothing more. And this is the saying of the atheists and unbelievers in general, particularly among the supposed liberals in the West. There is also clear and necessary. This is also clear and necessary that the greats did not miss it. It is a reference to the Wahhabi sect and the Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, whom they take as a lord, who would make ibadah make a bid'ah innovation, and they consider it a deen. In his debate with the Jahmites and the Mu'tazila, Ibn Taymiyyah literally said, the Mu'tazila may use it as evidence against Tawheed, Adl, justice, and Hikmah that they claim, and it does not contain any evidence for them. Rather, it is evidence against them and against their opponents, the Jabariyah, the followers of Al-Jahm ibn Safwan, who say everything that can be done is just, and they deny wisdom. So they say it is not done for wisdom, so they have no argument for it. He declared that there is no God but him, and this does not mean denying the attributes. Furthermore, they call the denial of attributes tawheed, but rather al-ilah huwa al-mustaliq lil-ibadah. The ilah is the one worthy of worship, and al-ibadah cannot be except accompanied by love for the ma'bud.
But again, a mistake of Ibn Taymiyyah. It's not necessary. I said many devil worshipper and so on, they hate him, but they do these various acts of ibadah and sacrifice and so on, just to keep him at bay, to escape his harm. So they hate him. So that's again showing that the defect in his definition of ibadah is the extreme love with extreme submission. That's the wrong one again. But this is when you get to ibadah itself again. So he's following the circularity without noticing it. And here he's motivated by want to attack the Mu'tazila that by denying the attributes. Denying the attribute has nothing to do. The Mu'tazila may say this is Tawheed. They call it Tawheed or something like that. And he says it's not Tawheed. But he added this Tawheed al-Isma al-Sifat in his definition. So he's agree with them again in a back doorway. So all of this is a mess. Sectarianism, debate with motivated by not looking for the truth and humbly accept what comes rather than by trying to prove the other side being wrong. Even if you see or perceive it may be truthful, you reject it. And this is the arrogance. This is what destroyed the devil and everyone following the devil is rejecting the truth because it has not come for me or for my faction or for my family and for my nation or something like that. That's what will destroy you. The arrogance. That's one aspect of the arrogance. Another one is looking down on people. We're not about, but rejecting the truth when it's offered. No, it's not for me. How can be truth just not come from us? How can be Nuh is more truthful and only these plebs, these thugs are following him, and we are not following him? How come they follow him first? If it would have been some worth, we should have been followed, but we did not follow first, meaning we must have been rubbish. That's what the people of Nuh said and other prophets. Exactly what is it? That's exactly satanic argument, which will undo you or destroy you. And indirectly, Ibn Taymiyyah quoting that, because he let the sectarianism and dispute between sects and ideas become a matter of hostility and so on, and I defeat you or you defeat me. Not if the truth comes from you, I will submit and accept. If truth comes from me, you should be submit and accept. Then you are humble, you are accepting the truth. And this is a sign that you're humbling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah is absolute truth, not the opposite. So unfortunately, but We are not discussing their psychology, but most of these things come because of the tendency of human to be having a desire to commit baghi al-udwan, desire to control the others, desire to defeat them, motivated by animalic nature. And that was necessary in the time when we were animals before Adam was getting the spirit. And that needed for survival. That's the law of the jungle. With the spirit, is ordered, no, you have to be above the law of the jungle. You have to depart that by your free will, by your action. You suppress the law of the jungle. You suppress these innate evil tendency connected to before the time you were conscious. Now you are conscious. You have some kind of a divine spark. You have to go up to that level, not sink down to that level. And that's exactly what the devil did and started, at least for this humanity and this world. Maybe in another galaxy, there are other phenomena, but all of them must have been starting from this non-respect and submission to the truth, and not recognize the truth is necessary. Allah is the absolute truth. So for that, you have to submit. Otherwise, what is else there? Submit to what? Submit to yourself, but you are not absolute truth. You are going again into the arrogant direction. Okay. But this is more like a spiritual and philosophical discussion, but it's very important to recognize where the disease has come from. So you teach yourself to restrain yourself. So when you debate with someone else, your intention should be, Shafi'i is quoted, I think he expresses himself really sincerely, but still he was stuck in his time and could not get out. Say, when I debate with someone, I wish and pray to Allah that the truth will come on his hand, because I know if it comes from his hand, I will accept it. Most likely, I think he's right. Shafi'i, all his life, sure that he's like that. But I'm not sure that the other one will do the same. So I prefer that the truth come in his hand, on his argument, not from mine. So there will be no reason to lose this truth because I will accept it. And he's going to say, you are right, I admit that your point of view is correct, and so on. And then well, the problem is resolved, no need for any debate. But if the opposite happens, I'm not sure about the others, how deep committed and humble they are to the truth. So that's I pray to Allah, make the truth be in his point of view, expressing his psychology. And I think he's right. I don't think he's lying. I think he's really, and all his life shows that. But not very few people reach that. But we can force ourselves to reach that. Well, in a debate, you supplicate something like that. Allah, show me the truth, even in the hand of the other. Especially, I wish it would be in his hand. Maybe he has improvement on the evidence, may have detected some error in my development of thoughts. That's great. I benefit from that. I hope it is like that. Because I know for myself, I have forced myself, I disciplined myself. You are not anymore this animal which shows gorilla in time pass. You are above the beast. You are separated. Keep yourself up, but this needs effort. If you don't do the effort, you sink down. That's the initial creation when it was insan and brought this with him. ثم ردناه أسفل سافلين, meaning that we sent him down to the lowest of the low, meaning we allowed him to go down because of his deed. But Allah expected that because the absolute dominant force in the universe, as if he did it directly, not that way. But in our theory of Qadar and how Allah acts in the universe and how divine actions to be understood. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. That what brought them up again to the level of أحسن تقويم, really upright, spiritually and the upright position. In the spiritual sense, they were upright, they were standing up. As their physical standing, they're really also spiritually and mentally standing. You stand on your own feet and your head is high and you look to the stars and start wondering about them. But many people say, no, we don't want that. We better fall on four and we just look on the ground to find food and look a little bit up to see a vagina or a dick and jump on it or submit to it if you are male or female. That's what animals are. Don't go down like that. And the only way this, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, then you get out of this mess. Yeah? So it has also deep spiritual and other aspects. Here the correct spirituality comes in Islam. That's the way to go. Not 100 that's tasbih and so on. Yeah, this is part of training and work. That's not the spirituality. Is recognizing this fundamental fact and continuously struggling against the beast which we have emerged from by the divine bringing of the spirit. Sound philosophical? Okay. Stop here, continue. Go back to this more simple, I think, this philosophical.
Okay, so we do not deny that Ibn Taymiyyah's words are confusing, like other Imams, because they unconsciously fell into types of hidden circular causes, which we alluded to previously, and will appear little by little. However, what we have mentioned in regard to him is the strongest and most likely, especially with the controlled preponderance in case of opposition, and citing the entire text in their context, contrary to the Wahhabis' malicious habit of truncating texts, taking them out of their context and distorting them. An example of that is the following. And it's from this text. And his saying in relation to the verse, whenever it was said to them, there is no deity but Allah, they became arrogant. And there is no doubt that it addresses the two types of shirk, the major and the minor, because it also addresses whoever acts arrogantly against what Allah has ordered him to do and does not obey him. In fact, that is the fulfillment of the saying, there is no God but Allah. Al-ilah huwa al-mushtaliq lil-ibadah. The ilah is the
مستحق
one
مستحق
mustahiq
worthy.
mustahiq mustahiq lil-ibadah.
مستحق يعني worthy. The one worthy. That's the translation with Muhammad Hijab and other use unconsciously thinking they have got a real translation of La ilaha illallah. But the word of Tawheed, it's clearly nowhere in Quran or Sunnah you find La ilaha illa لا إله إلا الله. There's no divine being worthy of worship. لا يوجد إله يستحق العبادة إلا الله. This word in that form is not everywhere in the Quran. So translating that is really a major violation. I'm sure the one translating that is having some blind spot, at least for some important aspects. What translate that? There's no deity except Allah. There's no God except God with a capital or Allah. But the one who has in Arabic a personal name like that, and maybe in English we don't have a special name, then we write it as the God. In Greek, they don't have capital and small, so they say the God. There's no God except the God, the big one, the supreme one, the initial one. All others are just fixed imagination. They don't exist. That's the word of Tawheed. No, worthy worship, not worthy worship. Considering studying, so that's another issue. It's irrelevant for this. We're denying the existence. That's it. That's sufficient. But it's amazing that they still translate that like that, and many of them. And this passes in many places without nobody noticing, like a deadly virus which nobody noticed and became incubated for maybe a long time, and then erupts in such situation, causing you to start doubting the foundation of the belief and so on. It breaks out somewhere, messing up all your belief because you have a fundamental error in understanding what's meaning of being believer, meaning of divinity, what meaning of submission, and so on. This will undermine everything. It's very important. But it's not immediate. If it's clear, nobody will go do it, but it's not immediate because of the hidden circularity. Okay, carry on.
In fact, it is fulfilled. There is no doubt. So where I was. Thus, everything with which Allah is worshipped is part of the incomplete devotion to the servants of Him. To Him, whoever acts arrogantly in some of His worship and obeys and listens to other than Him will not fulfill the meaning underpinning that statement. There is no God but Allah in this particular context. And this is your text continuing. There are two additional citations worthy of consideration here that have also been cited after across the works produced by Ibn Taymiyyah, namely from Ibn Taymiyyah. Indeed, al-ilah huwa al-ma'bud alladhi yastahiq an ya'bud. The ilah is the one who is worshipped, deserving to be worshipped. And ar-Rabb is the one who has command over his servant and conducts his affairs.
So both are wrong. We have discussed
regarding his saying La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illa anta, there is no God but you, is a proof that al-ilahiyya, so that's from 2187, al-ilahiyya, Godhood, belongs only to him. Al-ilahiyya includes the perfection of his knowledge, his power, his kindness, mercy and wisdom. All of that proves his benevolence to his servants, for the ilah is al-maluhu. and al-maluhu is the one deserving of worship, and the fact that he deserves to be worshipped is because of the attributes attributed to him that make it necessary
So
for him to be
again, going
loved.
in circle, and they discussed before perfection, but as not perfection, free agent who can take his creation and get away, or can run away from Allah. This is not a perfect being, but at least in this capacity, in this aspect, he's have equal power to Allah, so that he can run away from. Maybe you cannot even the jinn. They didn't believe they can create it, but all that they can do harm. When Allah want to catch them, they run away. So you have to address them with sacrifices and to keep them at bay, because Allah cannot protect from them. That's us. That made them having this. So the free agency and capability, at least to escape Allah's hand. He cannot grasp it when he get them. خلاص. That's enough. So has not to perfection again. So you see how the thing is mixed up. You go from the ideal definition of the wajib wujud as what his attribute will be, which is only for Allah, and think that somehow the others must have some of that or not have some of that, and wavers infinitely. Because even that's the reason in Ayat al-Fasad, when we discussed that, Ibn Taymiyyah mean if more than one is worshipped, the universe will be bad because people will be worshipped another. No, it is really there, meaning if a deity which emerged later after the creation of the universe is there, then this rebellious deity or this shaitan can start corrupting the universe, because he can get away with that somehow. But because it's not corrupted, it's consistent. He is like yesterday. We developed things very nicely over millennia. We studied the whole universe. It seems to be developing smoothly. Nobody is corrupting anything. All what's happening is according to intrinsic characteristic and so on, which we, because we believe the universe is created, started and initiated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that doesn't solve the problem with evil. That originally was completely perfect. Suddenly some came and started corrupting. Or from the beginning. From the beginning, there is no creation will ever be happening. But the universe exists. If it's after the beginning, this one definitely would start corrupting the universe, because I can get away with that. So he's having this divine aspect. And then the universe will be bit by bit slowly corrupted. But we don't see that. So slowly or fastly. So it will be corrupted. And he explained Ayat al-Fasad when we discussed earlier, as it the Fasad happened because people were worshipping beside Allah, and this will lead to bad society and so on. That's not a corruption method. Allah says about heaven and earth will be corrupted, not the society and human life will be society, but because of worshipping other beside Allah. That's only if in the ayah, ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر. Fasad and problem appear in sea and land because what the people hands have earned. That's caused by humans, because having their free will not according to Allah's command and not submitting to Allah, with the result that they will cause damage in the sea and the land. Or we see by that. That's another issue, but not heaven and earth will be corrupted in آية الفساد. لو كان في آلهة إلا الله لفسدتها سبحانه وتعالى إلى آخره. No, this is not. And the آية يبتغوا إلى ذي العرش سبيلا. All of them are related to issues of divinity, not issues of worship in first place. But he even misunderstood them and explained them according to this wrong guy. So he will never get out of this circle, this evil circle. Because he is stuck in the circle from the beginning. He did not detect it, and yeah, carry on.
So, sorry, the question. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just sorry, I was a bit confused. What is meant by maluhu for the ilah is al-maluhu, and al-maluhu is the one deserving worship. What is maluhu here?
Maybe I don't know what's maluhu. What's the word? What's
the transliteration meme? So M-A with a elongated vowel on top of it, apostrophe luhu, ma'luhu. So I don't have the Arabic.
I don't know what's that. I have to see the Arabic and the
All of
context.
that, he said, let me read it in context. So all of that proves his benevolence to his servants. For the ilah is al-maluhu, and al-ma'luhu is the one deserving of worship, and the fact they deserve to be worshipped because the attributes attributed to him.
And what's the translation?
That's transliteration.
There is no translation there of that word.
No, in the context, let's see how they translated that text. The claim of Ibn Taymiyyah, which is obviously false, but let's see what that's word exactly.
We don't have the Arabic to reference. No,
the Arabic you are reading to me. Ma'luhu, amaluhu, what is these words? I don't recognize them. So how he translated them, maybe you recognize that there's a misprint or something like that.
Probably a misprint. Let's see, because he's referencing an ayah. Let me see if I can bring the ayah up.
maybe مألوه.
Well, it says there is no God but you is a proof of al-ilahiyya, belongs only to him. Al-ilahiyya includes the perfection of knowledge and power, his kindness,
That's all
wisdom,
nonsense, yeah.
and
And
all of
power
that
and
proves his
agency, yes, yeah.
benevolence for ilah is al-mal. I'm just trying to see if in this ayah is mention of al-maluhu.
Carry, so we almost at the word which is with, yeah. I think he's using it مألوه, making the مفعول به from alaha. So he's starting with the verb alaha, and there's alaha, there's one who is doing ta'lih. When there's one who is being receiving the ta'lih is the مألوه. Like كتب مكتوب, كاتب, the one who writes, and the مكتوب, the things being written. Maybe this from that. And this again absorbed.
So I
So
just if it makes anything clearer, I'm just going to read the ayah that's referenced.
yeah, yeah.
وَذَنُّونِ إِذْ ذَهَبَ مُغَاضِبًا فَظَنَّ أَن لَّن
نقدر عليه
نقدر عليه فنادى في الظلمات أن لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. I'm not sure if that answers anything, but that's just the ayahs. That's just the ayah that Ibn Taymiyyah is referencing, or maybe it's just unrelated.
Then it's maybe ma'luh. But again, going in the circle, because the word ilah is coming from the verb alaha, and the one who does ta'lih is alih, and the one who is ma'luh, the maf'ul bihi, the one who does the ibadah, is making things even messier. That's not what, as I said, the linguistic origin is that ilah original, or I said, ultimately, ilah is defined by the Quran, independent what the linguistic development has been in time past. Yeah. So
yeah, I think it must be that. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyway, this is only one place. In other places, he express other expression. From the total summary, we externalize his point of view, which is manifestly and provably wrong. The moment he split Tawheed and Uluhiyyah and Rububiyyah and claimed that Arabs do not have shirk and Rububiyyah, that's Ibn Taymiyyah's claim. But it was not as sharp as Ibn Abdul Wahhab on that. The moment he does that, a catastrophe happens, and there's no way he can get out of that. And he needed to go around and say, this ilah is this one, and Rabb is this one, and so on. And then in a certain situation, he got stuck. You say, in this context, ilah is equal Rabb. In other contexts, they are different, or they have intersection, and so on. All of that is nonsensical, because you do not define even from the linguistic or from Quranic perspective correctly. With the result that all the result will be wrong. Especially because all of these go to ilah is originally come from alaha. And for example, in the poetry or in the rajas of Ru'ba bin Ajaj say, كبرنا وهم من تأله, from my devotion, my acts of worship, my so on. They say there's a very good تأله, meaning someone who showed devotion, تعبد, تنسك, veneration. So they were amazed about my veneration and so on. And they regard that as just what the linguist and language says. But then when we talk about ilah, la ilaha illallah, in that expression, that term and the language that what used the message of Allah to call people to Islam, distinguish between Islam and Kufr. Yeah? And the Quran says, and addressing Musa. Obviously, in a complicated address, maybe in the Old Testament, but he's summarizing it. Inni ana Allah, la ilaha illa ana. All the discussion about ilah, shaddai, and so on, even if it is true or not true, is being cast down, is condensed in this statement. Fa'budni, based on that, worship me, or enslave yourself to me. Well, that's it. So it's done. That's what we have to stick it. How it is originated in times past, like salah. Aqim as-salah, meaning this salah which we know, is opening with takbir, and that's the meaning of that, aqim as-salah. Is that what Arab mean that salah? They don't have that. That's constructed by Sharia and giving the name salah. What's the original name? We find discussion. What is the fi'l salawah? What does it mean? It has nothing to do even with supplication. Something else. Salah being the second in a race or something like that. Various attempt to get the original. But when the Quran came and used that for salah and used for other things, it abrogated all that. It's gone. Most of that's even forgotten. Even if you go to the dictionary, you don't achieve any intrinsic feeling or security for that. It's transferred far away, being the one who comes first or second, what has to do with the salah and takbir and sujood. Or those that use the Quran, إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي. What means salah? They are performing salah? No. when they say صلون على النبي, not يصلون إلى النبي. So ما معنى يصلون على النبي? The definition is that they praise the messenger and mention him with good terms and praising him. So you believer do the same. صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. Praise him and honor him and respect him. What has to do with coming first or last, or even supplication, like Allah. But here, يصلون على, صلى على is different than صلى إلى. So the Quran, the creator of man and languages and finite minds and reason and finite languages, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is definitely have the absolute right to transfer word in such a way and use them in specific way and in certain specific usage, which was not even clear how it came from the language originally. In the language before Islam, salah was used also for supplication, on act of veneration, or act of veneration which was not necessarily similar to ours. Like when the Quran said, "Ma kana salatuhum ala al-masjid illa muka'an wa tasdiya." Their veneration or the prayer form about the idols, مكاء وتصديق. ما كان صلاتهم إلا مكاء وتصديق. مكاء اللي هو صفير and تصديق تصفيق. And we see that in the Hindus. They stand in front of idol, Hare Krishna, Hare, and you have seen that in the movies and so on. That's their salah. And Allah mokay them for that. That's their invented salah. And it was caused by them salah. Let's go and make salah at Hubal. That's their salah. So it's some kind of veneration. So it has the meaning of veneration on catching up or being for all that doesn't help when he has to say what the meaning of Aqim Salah. Aqim established that what I order you, which has this structure with this timing and so on. That's it. You see? So the revelation did transfer certain. The same apply here for ilah. Even whatever have been derived in ancient languages that took centuries and so on, and even if we discount the discussion in I think in Exodus or in Genesis, I think it's in Exodus, what happened to Musa when he met Allah in the burning tree and so on. All of that is ancient history and the new name and Jehovah and so on, all that developed there, true or not true. It shows at the time it was not clear, not well developed and well established. But at the revelation in Arabic, it was well established, or clearly well established, or clarified in the Quran itself what is the meaning intended by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it uses it. In terms like قُلُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, bringing us the message that all messenger, their message, he summarizes it in various forms. One of the forms said, مَا أَرْسَلَ رَسُولٌ مِّن قَبْلِكَ إِلَّا أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا لَا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا اللَّهِ. It's the same like لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ and so on. So various expressions with the same meaning. We discuss these various expressions and compare the components and come to certain equations also about ibadah and shirk and so on later in a chapter by itself. So again, going into the ta'alluh, aluh, ma'luh, kullu does not bring us anywhere. Even if it's linguistically correct, it does not bring us anywhere. And that's one of the trouble Ibn Taymiyyah got himself in it. And Rabb is much better because the Quran uses it in the same meaning in the Arabic. And even the linguists made mistakes in that. When they say, mention at your king. No, Rabb is not king. But at that time was his Rabb, his master, his Lord, is the king. It happened to be accidental king, but could be someone else. Maybe the one who's believed he was the servant at a high dignity, and then they transferred him to the king or something like that. We don't know. So just claiming it is one of the meaning of Rabb is being king. No. King is something else, which connect with Rabb in certain meanings, in certain parts. We discussed that also in the definition. What is Rabb? The various meaning. We discussed that linguistically. And the Quran seems to be using it in these exact meaning. Either the owner who owns the entity, so he owns the creation. It is for him. He created for himself. It's not created for someone else to sell it to someone else. So, but it's not by definition a creator. When we mentioned the example of the Japanese car builder, he's a creator of the car. He's the one who made the car maker. What's it made in Japan? But he made it for someone else. He's selling to someone else. When you own the car, you are the owner of the car, the master of the car, the lord or the Rabb of the car, not the Japanese worker. He's the creator of the car. It's obviously a simple example, but and the car is now under your command because you own it. and you have the right to benefit and use it any way you like, in principle. That's it, not a creator. So, and he confused that. And we know in the tafsir, when we come to Muhammad Asad infects a little bit with the Wahhabi virus, when he say, translate Lord, sustainer. It's not a sustainer. It's the owner and the commander. Essentially, the two aspects. We discussed that also. Which is it could be for an ilah or not ilah. If it comes to the level that would be the intrinsically owner or commander, is then become one aspect of divinity, which then make you then appointing monks and scholars, deities beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quran mentioned them in the ayah, اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله والمسيح ابن مريم. All of them are المسيح ابن مريم on other ground, not because he's the commander, because he's of divine substance. So, but all equal, أربابا من دون الله والمسيح ابن مريم أيضا. And then said, وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا إلها واحدا. That's the reason Adi ibn Hatim rebelled. No, we don't worship them, because his mind, ilah, is something that connected with Hare Krishna and this, not with command and so on. In his wrong sense. And that's what most people mind the case before Islam. Nabi Sallallahu said, gave him a simple example, because he's a simple-minded, he's a Bedouin, almost half Bedouin, although he's from the north and he's a Christian or a certain sect and so on, but he's not sophisticated. So he asked him, didn't they make halal haram and haram halal? He said, yes. And you obey them, you actually regard that as their right, or it's clear, it's not. The moment they come in a council, then their ruling is the Sharia, is the ruling of Allah. Because of reason they can isma and so on, but it's all nonsense. They regard their ruling. Well, they don't have this sharp concept to it. It is being authorized by Allah or not. That's not that clear. But anyway, so say, فَتِلْكَ عِبَادَتُمْ. That's the worship. Attributing this facility to them in such a way that they have the right of legislation. But expressed it in a simpler language. They will make halal haram and haram halal. They can override Allah's ruling before that. Before the conference might change something. Like before that, priests and so on and Christian were allowed to multiple marriage. That they have that conference in which they exclude, at least for the Catholic Church, excluding that priests will are not allowed to marry. What was permitted before, now they have somehow made it unpermissible. You can't be a priest and be officially with a certain sacraments and action, and they denoted and with certain stripes and all these things, unless you are not married or leave the marriage and live in celibacy. You must be celibate. That's changing the law. The law before was definitely permissible. It was clear in the. Even Paul said the elder, the bishop, must be married only to but one woman. He says marrying too many is not befitting for it. He still can marry one woman, at least. I would like him to be celibate, but he said, but it must be no more one than if necessary, no more than one. And even that is overridden with that. No. Even priest, not necessarily bishop, presbyter, and down all of them. That's in the Catholic Church. So giving them the right to do that, make them arbaba min dunillah. That's clear. Commander beside Allah, who can override Allah's command. That's clear. The same like the jinn can running away from Allah. So you give them rububiyyah in a level challenging Allah's rububiyyah. And then he said, made that another aspect of ibadah, which was not clear in Adi ibn Hatim and the Arabs and the Christian mind before Islam. And the Prophet explained that that's the ibadah. It's one type of ibadah. Is accepting that they're ruling regarding that they have the right to override the law of Allah, making halal haram and haram halal. We will not express that they have the right of legislation and there's complicated statement like that. That's too complicated, but simple. There was something halal, definitely muttafaq alayh, nobody died, and that World Council declared to be haram. Or other things, maybe. Well, at the time, I don't know if this declaration was before the time of the Prophet or after. I think it's early. The celibacy or ordination. Or even if it's after, there are other halalat and haram they overridden in previous conferences, and Adi ibn Hatim follow them in overriding that. That's you say, yes, we do that, we know that, we cannot deny that. Say, فَتِلْكَ عِبَادَتُ. That's make them, and this way, it shows clearly they become then having, because of, they have this sovereignty in legislation or the capability of changing the law of Allah, that make them, that give a certain divine aspect. So let's add another divine aspect to ayat al-tamanu. that legislation. This will not create tamana. That's the reason not mentioned in that ayah, but it is create challenge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and undermining his law. Like even these jinn and can run away with their kingdom, or at least escape from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is undermining also divinity. So in that case, divinity and rububiyyah, lordship, intersect in some sense. So you see, you have to take many evidence to and put them together because the issues have various aspects and facets. So we have to now extend the definition. What's ilah is either one who can create and get away and so on in free agency, or one who attribute to himself or pure attribute him the right that he can override Allah's legislation, that he can legislate independently from Allah's revelation. He's not deducing, he's legislating independently, sovereignly. It's similar to the one who can run away from Allah. You can't catch him. So you can legislate against Allah's legislation, and this becomes valid and accepted by the one. The one who accepted that, they regarded him then as having significant share in the sovereignty, and hence he is a mushrik in that sense. So this is the other type of divinity. Is attributed hakimiyya, attributed. That's the reason also the Wahhabi are struggling with hakimiyya. Is it from Tawheed or after Tawheed and so on? Because they do not take all this evidence together. They didn't do tadabbur of all the Quran and put them and follow them. What they're doing is correct, meaning we have found ikhtilaf in the Quran, this contradiction in the Quran. It's not from Allah, which is impossible. But really, if you read it correctly, if you put it snugly together, it fits correctly and show that the Wahhabi are in error. Obviously, the Wahhabi did not say it so to say, oh, that shows contradiction of the Quran. If they would say, they would be kafir directly and would be out of Islam. But it leads to that. Anyone who will argue them, so this way, you have shown that the Quran is contradictory, it cannot be from Allah. If you show them that clearly, they should step back. If they don't step back, then it is clearly they insist on error and fallacy, and then they will be then going from out to be ignorant and to be knowledgeable and arrogant and exiting from Islam into kufr and from Tawheed into shirk. Okay, carry on. Again, Ibn Taymiyyah, the same confusion starting there, but it was because he's sufficiently intelligent and know many texts and know about history of the Arabs better than Ibn Abdul Wahhab, completely ignorant, blind-minded in this area, or mindless in this area. He was not so sharp at the extreme and did not dare to go to the level as if someone kisses the graves and makes you to grave is automatically kafir. He makes some distinction and hides a bit there, and so shirk akbar, asr, and so on. So even the term shirk asr is there, Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Wahhab and what after development. Before that, there was then shirk al-khafi, not al-asr. Shirk al-khafi, the hidden shirk, which is real, showing off and so on. This is really a hidden shirk, because they're shirk in niyyah, not in a belief in such a way. But if it persists and continue, it may turn you ultimately out of Islam, because if the shirk in niyyah is so strong, it may be you are doing that to please yourself, to get favor for yourself. And the moment yourself reach that level, a certain cut, which obviously taken all the evidences about Riyah and so on, it may get you out of Islam and become then shirk taken out of Islam. But it's called khafi, not called asghar. The same with the swearing with other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and declared to be shirk. It's shirk in a verbal expression. It's not shirk which take you out of Islam. Come in the shirk lafzi, verbal, but it's not real shirk. That's the reason when he had Umar swearing by my father or by bird of my grandfather or something, the Arab used to use things like that. Or in modern time, I swear by military honor. We hold military honor to swear with it, making so honorable that's worth being invoked as a guarantor for the oath. No, so only Allah can be invoked. For example, but many countries and many people do this word, for example, and they say لا تحلفوا بآبائكم وإلى آخره فإن من حلف بغير الله فقد كفر أو أشرك. رواية كفر أو أشرك, verbally, and they do not order him to make tawbah and enter Islam again. So it is not a thing violating Islam. But when someone by mistake, because still the sediments of Jahiliyyah in his mind in Mecca, became angry, say and swear by Allah and Uzza, And then he completed message. People say, you kafart. You exited Islam. He went to Inshallah, say, I said that what I do. Say you have something hujr, something ugly far away. Astaghfirullah wa qul la ilaha illallah. To balance it out. Because it came in moment of not my presence, not my intention. My intention would be kufr. Then you have to enter Islam Jadid. And if necessary to make a ghusl for those who believe that entering Islam requires a ghusl and all these things. But in the case of Allah, there's something different because the established belief of the Arab and everyone there that they are deity. So there's a genuine swearing. It is the amount to testifying that they say, قُلْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. They don't say, Amar, قُلْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. But don't swear. That will be verbally making them partner to Allah in verbal affirmation of oath. Don't do that. And most likely is that just to make it repugnant and to make the people, if they make an oath, they make it in the name of Allah only. Best to avoid oaths, not make Allah the name of Allah easy, but that is very difficult to finish with the people. That's the reason there's no kafara for that. It's laghu. But if it is firm oath, it should be only in the name of Allah. But doesn't take of the fold of Islam. But this is a fine point. As I mentioned, from that, all of it, take all of that, then you see the light. And ultimately, Ayat al-Tamanu' will give you the good starting point, and Ayat al-Taqad' these two together with other supporting evidences make the issue absolutely clear. Make absolutely clear. Good. Carry on.
It's precisely the same in the work entitled Iqamat al-Dalil al-Ibtal al-Tahleel and transmitted verbatim in the countless books of the Wahhabi sect. But people's brains have been corrupted, if they had brains at all. They transmit without any understanding. Something closer to that was mentioned in a book entitled Ash-Shahadatan Ma Nahuma wa Ma Tastalzimuhu Kulla Minhuma. Shaykh al-Islam said the Ilah is the one who is worshipped and obeyed. He also said there is no God but Allah alone, is a proof that al-Ilahiyya, Godhood, belongs only to him. Al-Ilahiyya includes the perfection of his knowledge, his power, his kindness, mercy, and wisdom, which are proof of his benevolence to his servants. For the Ilah is a deity, and the deity is the one deserving of worship. And the fact that he deserves to be worshipped is because of the attributes attributed to him that make it necessary for him to be loved with the utmost love, submitted to with the utmost submission. Worship includes the most.
Again, he's using ibadah and love and so on to define ilah in a circular way. He is not noting the, but also his major deficiency is making issues love and so on. That will exclude regarding the jinn that they can escape from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So those who worship al jinn and are actually or venerate them or sacrifice that, the worship will be in form of sacrifice. Slaughter for them, do that for them. Kill a black cat, do this and those that could happen in Halloween, things like that is all connected to this khurafat about these evil spirits and how to fence them off. And one of this is this do and this to escape their fear, and because they can escape Allah. That's what made them. If it was just that they harm things like if you throw an meat to a lion to escape the lion, that's not worship. Has nothing to do with ibadah. You do not take the lion. You know that the lion will be busy with the food and you can escape. That has nothing to do. And definitely the lion cannot exit Allah's power and Allah can catch him if you want. But there's no normal situation in the universe that if a lion attacks you, will end eating you. That's it. So you throw him meat. It is not a sacrifice to get him busy with the meat, and you can. I hope this way you can get away. That's it. Simple. Or if you're on a safari, you jump in the car and close the door. If you close the door and was intelligent and to keep it open and jump in and escape. Otherwise, made a mistake and you try to open the door, he will be fast and then consume you at the car door. What happened also, some people who were stupid went out to make photos and so on, but they did not keep the door open and knowing exactly how I jumped quickly in the car and were consumed by him. And some escaped because they were intelligent. So you can escape. There is many and so on. One of them to make the lion busy, you give him meat. That's not sacrifice, and then to act to worship. And you fear him, yes, because he's harmful and he can harm you, but not like the fear of the jinn. You fear the jinn because they're harmful and they can escape Allah. That's what makes them the divine and make it shirk. Not the case for the lion. There's so many things, but problem, the people got stuck in a certain problem and certain wrong assumption, and there is a sunk, and there was no, and motivation maybe somehow for whatever reason. But Taymiyyah was bugged with these what the Sufi do near graves as well. Some may be connected to false creeds. He did not connect it to the creed properly and flesh it out. He wanted to make the mere action is enough. And that's what the catastrophe. Then the mere action, like prostrated to grave or kissing the grave, خلاص. He wanted to give him the red card, but there's no red card to give it there. Just mere because someone prostrated to the grave, even if we go to prostration. But in that moment, somehow he was obsessed with that for some reason. I don't know what's the reason for that. What's maybe his relation to Sufi? Maybe because Sufis have said that statement which is outrageous. So he wanted to catch it somehow. Instead of doing the homework and analyze things properly and develop it correctly, he fell in that. He fell in this trap. And from this developed. So it's again some kind of psychological motivation, not rational consideration, and starting with the book of Allah initially in these things. And the correct language references, but in which also the book of Allah is the main reference, or not the opposite. Allah is the one who controls the language, the Arabic language, and use it the correct way, absolutely correct way in his book. Not that what Arabs and Bedouin and some linguists say is that control the book of Allah. No, that's the opposite. That's the opposite direction of the truth. Yeah.
Carry on.
Mm-hmm.
Next, the following has been cited in Tafsir al-Razi. One should seriously ponder over how he has set forth his argument in this passage. The name Allah has been used in this context. I seek refuge in God rather than another divine name because it has a greater effect in deterring ones from sins other than names and attributes. This is because al-ilah huwa al-mustahaq lil-ibadah. The ilah is God. The ilah, God, is one deserving of worship. This can only be if he is powerful, knowledgeable.
What's the translation? He's saying that ilah huwa al-mustahaq. Ilah is the entity or the one or the thing which is worthy of worship. Yeah. So making clearly that his definition of ilah is that the entity which is worthy of worship. But the problem with this may be correct at face, but the problem with this is that worship has to be defined before to see what was regarded the worthy of worship, and then we go in, and then we get in trouble and contradict the Quran. So that's a problem with this definition. Looks honest at face, yeah, the one worthy of worship because how is worthy of worship? He has certain attributes and things that which make him worthy of worship. But you don't think is that these and these attributes? That's an ilah. Being worshipped, not worshipped, worthy, that's irrelevant. And then we go there after that, define ibadah. Then it's an independent concept based on the other one. Yes. But not with it or before it. It will be catastrophic. Yeah. So
I'll skip through this one then. Next, the following has been mentioned in Tarjumat Sheikh Hafiz Ahmed Hakami. Sheikh Al-Hafiz Ahmed Hakami is regarded as a modern totem within the sect of Wahhabism. And this is from him. The meaning of La ilaha illallah is La ma'bud bihaq illallah. There is no deity worthy of worship except Allah. La ilaha, denying everything that is worshipped besides
even
Allah.
translation is the meaning. He said the meaning of La ilaha is nothing or no entity worthy is worshipped by right, meaning worthy of real worship illallah. Meaning that you can define what worship independently, and entities who are deserving that by right because of their attributes, obviously. But again, you use the confused and difficult concept of ibadah to define her. The implication we discussed with Razi. So it looks at face a little bit innocent, but لا معبود بحق إلا الله. Nothing. None is Allah is the one who being worshipped بحق as he deserves. The other worship بباطل. That's make things even complicated. What's بحق, what's بباطل, and so on. Put things upside down. Put the horse back in the carriage and ask him to pull. If you put it back in the carriage, you ask him to push, not to pull. So it takes contradiction there. The same thing, the same problem.
I'll skip then. You can read the text yourselves. We continue with what you say. We would say this viewpoint would imply by necessity, without doubt, be that implicitly, if not explicitly, that the following equation would apply, namely, La ilaha illallah, La ma'bud بحق إلا الله. There is no deity worthy of worship except Allah. Hence, a deity equals worship by right. This, as it appears, is the doctrine of their late contemporary Abdulaziz bin Baz. May Allah forgive him. He was content with quoting what Ibn Taymiyyah had put forth. Ibn Baz said, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah have mercy on him, said that the Ilah is the one who is worshipped and obeyed. Allah is the deity, and the deity is the one deserving of worship. The fact that he is deserving of worship is due to the attributes he is characterized by, which necessitate him to be the beloved, utmost of love, the one
So is
submitted to
quoting Ibn Taymiyyah essentially, simplifying the sentence of Ibn Taymiyyah and quoting it, and insisting to having the word beloved there. So then those who sacrifice to shaitan and sacrifice to the jinn are not worshipping them then. They don't know, they hate them, they are afraid of them. But they have to give a chapter الخوف من كذا الخوف إلى عبادة, and love is عبادة, sujood is عبادة. They have them to do the acrobatic, because they have already violated in the definition. So it's going never-ending circularity.
And he said the Ilah is the one beloved and the one who is worshipped, whose hearts deify with their love, submit to, humble themselves before him, fear him, hope in him, turn to him in hardships, call upon him in their interests, and seek refuge in him. Their hearts find comfort by his remembrance and find love, peace in his love. This is only for Allah alone, and this is why saying there is no God but Allah alone is the most honest saying, and people who believe in it are the people of Allah and his party. As for those who deny this saying, they are Allah's enemies and the people of his wrath and vengeance.
That's obvious. That's nice admonition of the people and so on. The conclusion, yeah. Because it's the most fundamental statement of even in existence. The most important statement in the universe is, like, for example, there's the hadith. I didn't check his validity, but sounds reasonable. That Musa asked Allah to teach me or tell me some kind of praise or supplication or a statement which I should repeat. And he said, قُلْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Said, all your servants say that, I want something special for me. And Allah is supposedly hadith telling him, nothing better than can exist. If La ilaha illallah is put on a scale and the whole universe is another scale, La ilaha illallah will outweigh that. It's the most fundamental one in meaning of existence. There's nothing else there. There's nothing there. The final, all proofs of ontology and cosmology, and that the whole reality emerged by an act of will of an entity which is necessarily existing. And there's no entity like that whatsoever. Even what people imagine is all false imagination and false attribution. It's the most fundamental reality of the existence of the whole universe. When you say universe, I mean the universe, not the physical universe, cosmos. No, I mean the universe, all that around. It's the state of affairs. هذا الأمر, including what we cannot even access by material observation, like angels and demons, if they exist, everything, imagine, and ideas floating in people's minds. All of that is contingent and must have a source somewhere in time past. And by the development of infinite regions, it must be to a starting point, absolute starting of thought and time. And this is the deity, free agent. That's La ilaha illallah. Obviously, in all Polish sophistication, but even Musa and the Hadith mentioned their language, because Musa is not a philosopher. So he's given language he has in the level of civilization and culture he has, which is quite high, but not high enough to go in such philosophy. So he told him, if that is, we'll put in a scale, it will outweigh the whole universe. Obviously, La ilaha illallah is a statement of fact. Is that it doesn't have weight, it's not subject to gravity, but assume it is having a weight and gravity. That's the meaning of it. It will outweigh the universe. Yeah, because the whole universe is an expression of La ilaha illallah, expression of this deity is an existing free agent. Otherwise, there would be no reality whatsoever, which is an impossibility. Absolute nothingness is not a thing, is a non-thing. So all my servants saying that, how good it is that this is the most important fact. You cannot find anything better. A statement which is pleasing and truthful more than this statement. So that's the part which is based on regarding that it's the most fundamental reality. We had introduced himself to unveiling three, the Old Testament mention, a long discussion, which may definitely has happened. I think it's or a bit of it at least, or because these words were not there. Allah summarized in the Quran very easy verse. From the three, Inni ana Allah. I introduce myself, Inni ana Allah la ilaha illa ana. I use the word Allah because that already distilled from the revelation of Quran. Before that, it was the word Allah was not even there yet. Wa'il, Elohim, Yehovah, some kind of symbolic name and so on. And there is no deity, no necessary eternal being. In the Old Testament, the word Jehovah seems to be a abridgment of I am who I am, the necessary existing, the eternal. Based on that, enslave yourself to me and acknowledge my absolute sovereignty and my absolute perfection. And the flip side of that, from the side of the creation, is complete acknowledgement that he is the absolute owner, you are his absolute slave, and you are obliged by necessity of reason for submission. But then we say, فَعْبُدْنِي, do that consciously, knowing I want that from you, I created you for that too. And they will account to your qiyam for that. So is that even a Sharia command it that way. But the rational aspect of it is by necessity of reason. It must be reduced by that. But I command you to comply with that, express it by free will now. Not just recognizing, but act upon it. At least in principle, accept it and principle. Not say, no, I'm not accepting it much. The moment that you are like Iblis, I'm not going to execute because somehow your command is wrong or faulty, and I have the right to question you. Red card. But this is the reason, by the way, because this is under my reason, as discussed in earlier, maybe not that sharpness we're discussing now, but discussing. So that's the biggest thing. So the last part of Kalam bin Baz is nice, is admonishing the people. This is the most important thing, the most important fact you should be telling the kids when they are born. Actually, people need to have this good habit. When the child starts to say, they don't say Baba, Mama, say La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. They prompt him to say La ilaha illallah, even though say Mom and Papa. Which is a good habit. I think that's a good one. Mama, Papa, he'll know. Or mom or mother or whatever in the language, Mama and Papa. He will get those, obviously. But this is what they start prompting. It looks extreme, but it looks really the right way to go. So he hears these words. He doesn't understand the meaning, obviously, but what is it? But they say, Baba, Mama, you know, this entity in front of me, which give me milk and so on. And the regular cases now, most women are using bottle, but let's go, they are starting to go back to basics. Is what's called Mama, is my mother. And then later on, recognize that I'm depending upon him, and recognize later that they tell him, obviously, in time when people are stuck up, they say a stork brought you and put you in the chimney. Now the people know he came from his mother belly, and he was created the belly by intercourse with his mother and father and mother and so on. Inevitably. But that you recognize that. So what was it, La ilaha illallah? That's the one who created us, bit by bit. I think this is just not a bad way to start. Just prompting me that word become in his sound tuned in his mind. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. Just these few words. They have set a ring that he memorized them. Then later on he will become get understanding meaning and so on, etc. Bit by bit, bit by bit, bit by bit. So the last part of Baz is nice. It's a matter of admonition and putting the importance of this statement itself and the truth it contains. Is this the ultimate truth in the universe, or the universe in the meaning all the surrounding reality and the state of affair, not only the cosmos and the stars and so on, whatever contained in that which is not accessible to observation or experimentation. For example, the ideas and the imagination running in the brains of people. What's happening in the brain and the imagination of the cat. When your cat see you and you call her, my name is Shitan, so she somehow identified that you're addressing her. How it works there is definitely is much more primitive than what we have, but we cannot describe it because we cannot experience it. That's part of all the thing. All of that goes back to La ilaha illallah. So that part of the verse, that's nice, admonishment. But the problem in the definition when it comes to scientific work and classifying things and the correct classification and what's being done at graves or then at the prophet or calling the prophet and so on, that's where the errors happens. And then based on that, that's mushrik, is outside of Islam. And then with the other misconception that being Muslim is that what protects blood, not being human being. then your blood will be shed, and then we have all these catastrophes based on this, in the blunder on definition, not in the admonishment of the last of believers. That's the correct admonishment. But the problem, that admonishment will be injured and partly disturbed, because then what is ilah and what is tawheed will be disturbed by the mistakes of Ibn Taymiyyah and the extreme blunders of Ibn Abdul Wahhab. And make it the most important and most fundamental statement in the universe of truth becomes then having a fallacy in itself, which should not happen. It's very important to understand that. And we see, at first, okay, what's the problem if they declare kissing the grave as being shirk? The problem is that then you declare people to mushrik, and if you made the blunder that their blood can be shed, even if you believe the blunder, that you desert them, you have distance with them, you don't marry with them, and so on. That's the great problem in the living on earth. And if it comes to bloodshed, that's worse. Then you contradict what this ilah has revealed, if it ever has revealed anything. But the whole thing is that he has revealed something and made that an obligation to worship nobody except him. And then you are violating that. You're not complying with the meaning of that. You're just blabbering something which does not reflect what you really understand in the universe properly. It's still a misunderstanding. It's still a misunderstanding, which will not lead to really understand your place in the universe, what to do, what was the meaning of life, if there's any meaning, unless it is the pure understanding of the correct Tawheed. If you mix with wrong understanding, then Tawheed will not have that, which will not be the truth. We want the fundamental truth. You broke that truth, messed it up. So when someone translated that there is no deity or no God worthy worship except Allah, that adding worthy of worship will really injure the Shahadatain, will bring down to essentially having a fallacy in them. So the greatest statement of truth in the universe, as Allah told Musa, according to that hadith, which sounds good. I think the meaning is very good, and I don't see any reason to believe it's wrong or fabricated. It's not from the Prophet. If that's then you have degraded from that into something which contains a fallacy. The biggest truth turns into partly fallacious, which is a catastrophe. It's a real catastrophe in itself, from epistemological knowledge as a philosophical aspect, but in the practical result, it will not have the effect of La ilaha illallah understood properly. Yeah. So you see the danger of that, of such even words. It's definitely, it's okay, it can't go. No, it can't go, because the result will be catastrophic. Philosophically, and as a matter of fact, it is a contain falsehood, and this all absolute truth become not absolute truth. This is a catastrophe in itself. And the result in what, based on that, on worship and submission and obedience, will result in catastrophe in your position in the universe, your position with other human beings and so on. Which, look, it will create contradiction to the revelation and make life miserable, instead of life become really worth of living, and you understand your place of the universe and how to deal with good and evil and understand it properly. And solve the problem of good and evil correctly, not by escaping to another deity and so on. And then you have then all these rituals and so on to appease the jinn and so on. And then you go in the domain of khurafat and so on and go astray from the truth of reality of the universe, that you are created to submit and enslave yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That makes life making sense. Otherwise, what is it? It's just eating, drinking, and producing kids and expire worthless. You can't give you life set a sense. I try to be a great professor. Okay, let's give you a limited sense, which you can divert your mind from thinking about expiration and being end worthless and disappearing completely from existence, which is very troublesome thought, obviously, for being like humans. I don't think as animals have such a concept, but maybe they may have a shock if they say someone of their genus killed them. Thought of them, they recall something horrible happened. But after a few minutes, they have forgotten. But humans have, they nag them. The human makes themselves forgotten, but say, oh, I want to be the prima ballerina. A woman can say that. I want to be a great professor that will fulfill my life. You can't give yourself certain limited targets. And if you are honest, like this director of movies, discussing certain social, some admirers say, this is a great movie, sir. Which issues of philosophy and life you are discussing? The same. I'm not discussing an issue. I made the movie just to get my mind off about that. I will be rotting in the grave and expired for infinity. That's it. if I just not get something to work on it, like great movie or something else, I will be thinking on that. So to escape that troublesome thought, which I have no solution for it, I'm making great movies. I don't care about what the social message or something else. I'm making something which maybe address a certain issue in the current hand, because this is, otherwise the movie will not succeed and they cannot get finance for it. So that's the reason I'm making great movies. I don't remember his name, but one of the great, I think he said that in the 90s. Don't waste your time asking me about philosophical issue. I'm just to divert my mind from these troublesome, bleak destiny, which in an interview with Feynman, there was discussion about religion and so on, and he said originally he tried to find something in the Old Testament, and he found contradiction and things like, for example, women are cannot accept witness. Okay, why? Because Sarah lied, allegedly. So how do we know that Sarah lied? And who it was a lie? And how is narrated? So just simple question like that. Then he will, since in the environment around his own, because he's of Jewish origin, Judaism and Christianity, which is continuation, and most of Judaism ruling are there. So this must be a fallacy. And then you say, it's nothing there. The universe will have, but because the universe is expanding, it will end in death heat, and even protons will disintegrate according to the best theories at his time, grand unified, and then it will come into nothing. And say he was so moved with the one interpreting that he ran upstairs and came down after some time, few minutes, clear that he was weeping with the weight of this nasty idea. But we're being busy with education, going to Rio and playing the drums in the Rio carnival and so on, to divert his mind from that. But in certain situation, you can't divert mind, and then you start grieving and feel down and bitter. Luckily, when you had La ilaha illallah and you get the evidences and you are certified about that, then you after that. There will be moment of doubt, moment of confusion, second, shaitan will whisper and then go. And say just ultimately, but you have to establish it on firm ground, like we established Tawheed in Islam, on the necessity of reason and on the Quranic revelation. After proving that Quranic revelation, that Quran cannot be from Muhammad, no from Arab, etc., with the evidence of prophethood, then we have this certainty. The moment of wavering will go, and if it gets to a moment that repeating the same evidence again, like Mr. Allah said, the people keep asking who created it, and then they come to who created Allah. When you get there, it is a satanic idea, because by definition, Allah is the one who is not created. This is existing, and this is a satanic play with your mind. إذا وصلت إلى هذا الحد, then قل أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. This is a satanic idea. Expel it by تعوذ بالله. That's the only way to go, because internally contradictory. But Satan will get it to you to confuse you, and if you do that, the few seconds of wavering are gone. And again, it will come another occasion, another third occasion. It will happen because you are a limited being. Knowledge about facts, which he has proven to be true with absolute proof, is never absolutely firm. So the created being can never deserve the full title Al-Mu'min, but it's a divine name, Al-Mu'min. What's the meaning of Mu'min? He knows about himself with absolute certitude. No instant of doubt can be there, because his knowledge is perfect, because it is existing. But there's not a shiva for any creation. Allah knows that. So advice through his prophet, this will happen. There's no escape. There's no way can it be otherwise. And the way of that, you can't thinking and analyzing and so on, but it gets to the fundamental truth of this, the existing being, free agent Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they will say, who created Allah? But we did the whole thing to go to the one who is the creator, but not created. Then it's just existing. That's the fundamental. We cannot go anywhere after that. That's the absolute beginning. Nothing can be discussed about that. It will be false. Take it as it is, because that's what dictated the whole your internal perception and being directed to it. And this is even in the Quran mentioned another way, when he argued with some people. Are they created from nothing, just emerged out of nothing? That's impossible, because they're contingent. There must be something getting them out of nothingness. Are they created from by nothingness? Maybe from nothingness. They have no existence before, but that bringing them from non-existence to existence must be an entity which has this power. Or did they create themselves? That's impossible, because you are created. So if you create yourself, you must be there before you create yourself, but that's impossible. That's circularity. And then the question continue. Obviously, you can expand that philosophically to a complete proof, and that's expanded in, I think, in Tawheed, and maybe in a separate book one day. And then أم خلق السماوات والأرض. Clearly, the universe, if you look, is created. Everything is limited. Everything is rise up and down. That's not if it shares a characteristic when it is the existing being. The moment you get to there must be this is the existing being, we can study by necessity of reason what's the minimal attributes. One of this is that it's not spiritable, not composed, not color, and so on. It does not apply to anything. So who created that? We did not create it. So it must be that necessary existing being. خلاص, finished. That's it. Stick to that. And any other whisper, that's just the weakness of the finite mind by necessity. There's no escape from it. And the devil, either a metaphor for the bad ideas or it is a real entity which rebelled against Allah Ta'ala. Whatever the devil may be, is a whispering of the devil. It is not a matter of real rationalization. It is a matter which to pull you, leave the rationalization and rationality and certitude into irrationality. Because such a question means irrationality, but we have proven, and the ultimate, already proven and well-established with certitude, we're going again and trying to redoubt the certitude. Like meaning is going again and doubting that we exist. Look at yourself, but you existed again. So this is the shaitan playing with me. Because we ended there, khalas. So let's just comment on Ibn Baz admonishment, expanding it really into philosophical and more Sufi-like spiritual aspects as well. But this is why Allah work in the creation. But that's the reason of the hadith. I think it's authentic, or it seems to be reflecting something coming from prophetic source that told Musa said, I want something special for me. All your creations say, all your servants, all these servants, they say, La ilaha illallah. What's special in that? I want something special. See, there's nothing special. That's the ultimate. And you have to share with the others. It's good that many are saying that. Why you are trying to be the only distinct one? Be like the others. And he shaded them another occasion of the story with the Khidr and so on. Because he has to be developed. He has a lot of cultivation in the house of Pharaoh and from his fathers and in the Jewish community, but not up to the level. So he has to be cross-smear, and Allah did the dedication by himself with various means. And it's accumulated by the other prophets, establishing and expanding until the final prophet came, and then the cut came there. That's enough now until Yawm al-Qiyamah. No need for prophet. You do the job after that. And always start with certitude. Don't start with doubt and question. Start with the certitude. I exist. Let me look at myself and start there. Go there. Then. أم خلقوا من غير شيء أم هم الخالقون أم خلقوا السماوات والأرض بل لا يوقنون. They want to leave from yaqeen, certitude, into wavering, which is undermining reason. Because reason is that what you go to the certitude, which is established with proof. And then you must establish the proof and reject the proof that others checked with you. And all rational people who check the proof, they not bring any correction or counter proof, then it's well established. I stick to it with the arrow fist, anything coming on, we know. You are playing game with me. My finiteness or my devil is playing game with me, whispering at me with those whispers. And the only way is just to ask that entity that is existing to help you expelling this idea. And then we'll say, and divine madad, the divine support come to you in a mysterious way. And you start with, I know now what's happening. Something is deceiving me, either my own limitation, which is necessary. There's no way to escape limitation because you cannot be divine. A divine cannot be created by definition. So you are maybe an image of the divine, but a finite image. That's all what you can. It's impossible otherwise. A divine being is not, that's by definition, not a creatable. No power can be, even divine power cannot step there. That is a false definition of power. The power will be contradictory then, which means necessarily existing is contradictory, but is the absolute truth containing contradictory? Reason collapses, everything go away. Either you look in yourself again and start again. Or recognize, this is the devil playing games. So that's it. So, and not having the correct definition, at least in books and by scholars and so on, so the common people can be prompted and educated like that in a more simplified language, is a catastrophe. And please, I said, both in intellectual and issue of pure philosophy, understanding the universe and reality and the meaning of reason, which is catastrophic. But in practical terms, it needs also catastrophic problems. The happiness in the society, in life, that life goes there, that you are content in your heart, which the believer has. على بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. Then the heart will calm. You know where you are, and you which hope you have, and what condition you have to fulfill, what work you have to do. And you don't need to do movies just with purpose or no purpose, just to escape the troublesome idea that you are worthless and will expire because there is no God. That's because the guy is an atheist who said that. You don't need. It is a fallacy, proven fallacy, and you know where you are. And you keep advancing in that direction. Then you have the internal content with the relation with other creation, and the right relation, and then in the society you don't have bloodshed and so on for no valid reason. There will be bloodshed. It has sometimes valid reason because some people decided to rebel against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and start attacking other people and killing them and so on. Then you have to defend yourself. There will be bloodshed. But not that you initiate bloodshed because this is a kafir, this is out of order. Even if he's a kafir, I am ordered to kill him. No. Unless he becomes violent and pull the sword and tell him, put the sword down, otherwise will pull the sword and they will get you to be finished and out of the way. If you put the sword down, alhamdulillah, peace again. That's simple. The Wahhabi movements and with the second error or matter of that mere Islam is there to protect the blood and kufr will make the blood sheddable is clear contradiction and violation of the Quran. That all life and all nufus are protected and cannot be killed, قتل النفس, except with the بالحق. And the haqq is defined by whom? Not by my mother or grandmother or the Congress or the defined by the ultimate being. Because he's the absolute truth. So the haqq will come from him. So if he allows, is that allowed? But it's not allowed, not allowed. No discussion, no back and forth. No beating around the bush. Okay, so the maw'idah, that was not a book of Tawheed, but more of a spirituality. But it's good to have that from time to time. I try to conclude that section and then we continue for inshallah another day.
Yeah, makes
and
sense.
We still have time. How much time we have?
It's still, we're only halfway through the chapter. We can finish there, inshallah. The next bit will be on Ibn Abdul Wahhab and stuff.
Okay, just read. I will try to control myself, not comment.
Honestly, it's getting a bit late as well, so I think it's right to stop. I mean, let's stop in the next
section. Midway, leave Ibn Abdul Wahhab at least that part later, because we mention his quote and show how bad and mentally and wrong he is. That's more like showing people what he is reality. The man is absolutely ignorant and obviously mentally deranged.
Okay, we'll stop here then. So it's at the top of page 62 because that's where it more or less starts. Inshallah. Okay. So
these are important things. It's not just a matter of philosophical accuracy and so on. No. They have absolutely important things for everyone and giving that he knows where he's placed really in the universe and what is the reality around him. And be content with that then. When you go there with a problem, even this is over a branching problem. That's the reason when in the hadith of Jibreel, he asked about Iman. Well, he's not asking what's the nature of Iman, conviction, and so on, and acts or belief. No, he's like, what the topics which you define and you believe them, you have Iman. فقال Iman that you are, and tu'mina that you, these are the topics. Billahi wa malaikati kutub rusuli wa bil yawm al-akhir. And the Prophet, that is what the Quran says clearly. There's no need to discuss that. And the fundamental one is Allah, because the others are branch. What meaning Allah? That's what we meant. That He's a necessary, existing, eternal being, free agent, complete perfection. And everything goes back to Him. He's and He's the ultimate purpose of everything. He is He. The Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. وملائكته. What's the meaning of ملائكته? Who cares about malaika? The meaning here that malaikati are created being and they are his servant, not divine, not offsprings. That's enough. You don't need to have a book about there's one called Jibreel, one called Israel, one called Rafael, and the Christians, the Jews have a list of angels' names, maybe true, maybe false. That's irrelevant. What are they? Servant obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Quran describes them. If that's what I mean, not that they exist, clearly that they exist, and that's this characteristic. Not to the offspring of Allah, not divine, create. That's enough. وكتبه, that Allah has revealed books. So He is not creating the creation, turning away and doing a crossword puzzle for Himself enjoyment. No. And that's just an expression of artistic and capability. No, it doesn't need that. That does not fit. It seems to be rationally, but I don't have a formal proof. That's not befitting for this existing being to create just for fun. And He refused that. لو أردنا نتخذ له اتخذه من لدنا, not this way. something from our inside self, but we don't need it, and we don't have this will, because we have enough satisfaction and iman in ourselves that we are in complete peace in ourselves. And you should start to come closer to that, step by step, one by for all eternities. That's Kutub here. Or Rasul here, the Rasul, the one who brings the Kutub. But the Rasul also have some of them have books, structured books, like the revealed Torah, the tablets, the Sahih of Musa we dictated, and things like that. The one of Isa, the Injil, which is the utterances of Isa collected, have been collected after him, but it's lost. It's collected in the language of the Hebrews, which at that time was Aramaic, in the common language, but none of that exists. That's what this time they call Q. It's not what they call gospel now. That's making his biography, because Paul came with a bid'ah that the good news of Isa, which is that what he uttered, which is essentially that the kingdom is near and the glorious one will establish the kingdom, which is Mashar bin Nabiyyati Ba'du Muhammad, and confirming the Torah in general with some modification. Possibly with some modification. We are not certain about that. And he educated his student, some sentences quoted, because all his followers, the near Nazarene, the near Ebunite, were extinct before Islam. And we have only what the other side reported about them. And that's extinct. It's not in our hand. But it was revealed and was recorded, but not the way Quran recorded, not protected, because it was just a stage until the final messenger came out. He announced the final message. That's main part of his, like confirming the Torah. You are mistaken. These things are wrong. These are fabrication. And it seems to be the Nazarene Ebunite believe that the Torah is corrupted and should not be taken on board, which is the correct belief. It seems to be, but it's only quoting their enemies regarding the attacking point. But it seems to be it's true. But we have none of their writing. Most of it's gone, extinct. So, and then Muhammad, as a messenger, came to a messenger having a book which is recorded and available with certitude now in our hand. So we believe in that. All Yawm al-Akhir, that's clear. That there will be life after death. How many time after death? Million years, billion years, who cares? It will come. And this is for accounting. And this must come because Allah will reward those who obey Him and fulfill the purpose of their existence. And Allah promised to give something is absolutely binding on Him. He cannot forsake that. So it must happen. No doubt about that. And then Allah added that because the main issue about a millennium before Muhammad, until Muhammad, the main issue was led all to this Trinity and all these crucifixion, all these theories, justification, crucifixion is the issue of evil, how the evil came in the universe. And all solution with another deity, eternal deity, all as refutable, definitely. So how this was called evil, by redefining even the qadar, that is the system is so designed, even if you think it's evil, but maybe evil, is by creation of Allah. There's no other creator of evil. He's creator of everything. But the evil is have to understood how it came into creation. Is it by acts of free agents who decide to rebel? That's really evil, but it's their doing. And it's a result of free will. They cannot have a genuine free will without the possibility of some of them rebelling. And some did rebel in the past. And some will rebel in the future. There's no escape from it. Otherwise, it's not free will. It's a joke. And the second one is that what people in the universe that you'll be eaten by a lion. But it's evil for you. It's not evil for the lion. That's just the universe how it works. He has to eat. And the whole universe cannot be in balance without having lion or having these. And if you have grass-eating animals, they must be balanced. Otherwise, grass will be extinct. So there will be flesh-eating animals. So the balance is set for millions and hundreds of millions of years. They escape from. That's not evil. This is from your point of view because it harms you. Who said that you are the child in the universe and keep the balance? He is the one keeping the balance. I'm just giving a summary of the issue of Qadar. So he added Qadar as a sixth one. They call it Arkan al-Sitta. But actually it's part of believing in Allah. But a special part sorted out because of this problematic. And misinterpreted by many as fatalism. This has nothing to do with that. Something else different. It's just the opposite of fatalism. And then Al-Arkan, as mentioned, and so on. Islam, whom we can name as a Muslim. Well, Islam, تقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة إلى آخره. And then the last one, what is ihsan? What's perfection? When the Quran says be muhsin, accelerate in good deeds, say that you submit and slave to Allah in such a way as if you see Him, but obviously you don't see Him. We recognize Him by reason, and this is not always present in the mind. So most of our life go in something secondary things. But if you keep His presence in the mind, all your act will become better, will more perfect, then become muhsin. because تعبد Allah, that you worship Allah, or they enslave yourself to Allah. Not making salah and zakah and these things. Some of them may be in that, but not necessary. All your acts, if it's done with the spirit and the understanding, I have to submissive and be enslaved to Allah. So are they legal or not legal? And you do the legal, do it at liberty, without exceeding the access which get you to makruh. All of these things make you more muhsin, more and more and more, the more conscious you are. Not that you're sitting in a monastery and doing 70,000 Durud Sharif. That's not ihsan. Ihsan is submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such a way as if you are conscious of him in a more present way, more permanently than what is the reality is that you don't see him. What we don't see is not present in front of our eye all the time, unfortunately, because the nature of Allah, the universe, is created such a way that Allah is behind the veil to be a testing universe. Otherwise, if he's not behind the veil, there's no meaning of testing. He's obviously good that point of view. No way, except it's impossible to do anything. And that's also indicated in the hadith when they said, whose iman and belief is the most amazing? Say, the angels. See, how come they are with their Lord? Seem to be the angels are having, there's a veil between them and Allah in some sense, because of the difference between this is existing, but they have more, they see him more than we see him in that sense. Okay. So how they do? They are with him. Continuous connection. So how can it be amazing? Almost by necessity. And that's indicated that they are, most of them almost certainly do not have free will. Some kind of metaphor for certain forces. Some Sahaba say that anyway. Next. Say then, the prophets say, why this should be amazing? They're receiving wahi from their Lord. And they have absolute conviction and evidences in their hand that they are messengers and they are receiving. And they know they are not deceived. So every messenger checks himself when he's appointed the prophet first that the evidence had, or he see the evidences by the stick turning into a snake. He says by himself, no, by necessity, I'm not doing that. And nothing around can do it except that one who talking from the three, who say, I'm the one who I am. So why it's amazing? It's not amazing there. So then who is the amazing? Ourselves. Let's say, maybe you mean ourselves. Say, what's amazing when I am between you and you see my miracles and see me? And you have almost direct connection to the evidences. Say, amazing, the one who comes after us and find things in books, obviously after scrutinizing and believe in them. Verify their authenticity, go back with isnad, do all of these jobs. Summarize it. This is amazing. Because they have to rely on isnad, tawatur, analyze this, make sure that the Quran is being copied correctly. If there's a copy has a mistake, check all other copies, that plenty of copies have been kept by the Quran and millions of memorized copies in the minds of many memorizers, at least 100,000 through history until now. But after doing that process, this is definitely from a prophet, or definitely from Allah. And they believe, but this needs hard work. This is amazing. Not the angels, not the prophets and the messenger, not you with me, the companion who live and touch and speak and see the prophet on a daily basis. And the others who didn't see him, usually coming after him and finding things in books. And they do need to do really serious verification work. And they believe what is in the books. Sometimes all the verification work, some people embrace Islam from English and American and so on, they say, ultimately some condition got them to open the Mus'haf and read it. Immediately recognize that it cannot be human speech. That's all the evidence you need. He has Allah gives him such capability and purity of the internal mind and so on. Although he may be loaded with previous religions, maybe he searched for Hindus. That's usually happen like that. He searched for Hinduism, for everything. And then ultimately said, because especially in the West, Islam is regarded as evil and from beginning. Nobody look at it in the first place. Who looks at this mess? Cannot be the enemy of Christ. The ugly, the one who is the Antichrist. Who looks at that? But then he said, guys, clearly what we have there is contradictory. I cannot accept Trinity and so on. We start people to think, let me check everything before Islam usually. And then he said, okay, let us take a look to this Islam. They claim they have a book called Quran. Let me check. The people never even know there's a book called Quran, what is contained. When they open and read, they're state of shock immediately. That's enough verification. Verification is not necessarily all these academic work we have done and isnad and the recordation of the Quran. But this bit must be done. So it's available to everyone. But for some people, is that enough? When you open the book, that's not Muhammad talking, not a human being talking. And there are certain things which are impossible to perceive except from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's what hadith of Jibreel. Done probably. Not studying about grave and so on, and traveling to say salam to the Prophet, is it allowed, not allowed? That's turn the issue into triviality and rituals. Destroy the meaning of worship completely. And lead to the misconception that I think the one who is a monastery or the one who is doing 20 rak'ah at night every day is superior in worship or in ibadah in Islam to Allah, to the one who is not doing that but doing, for example, charity, and traveling all the way to do charity. No. That one is maybe much more superior and misunderstand the ranking of deeds, like the hadith of Umar. Umar said, regarded that dying in battle, Shahada is the supreme. So two brothers, all of them Muslim, good Muslims, one of them died in the battle. And then his brother survived and stayed a year and then died. And he saw them in dream and saw that the one who died on his bed after a year was having higher rank than the one who Shahada. So he's amazed. He said, I saw that. I'm confused. I said, why? The one lived after his brother. He participated in jihad, but he did not kill. Allah did not grant him Shahada, but he granted him 1 year life after him. How many Jum'ah were in that 1 year? We have one Ramadan. Maybe he fasted the other day. Let's see, just one Ramadan. He has one Ramadan extra. He has how many Salah? He counted them in Salah day and multiplied for a year extra. He is someone who gives the regular charity. He's not rich, but he has some charity. He's given that. All of these adds. So at the time, the brother got the Shahada. At that moment, maybe he was superior because of Shahada. This one did not get it. But after a certain time, all these deeds accumulated to outrun his brother. So, Omar, you are misunderstanding what's the meaning of what is the most virtuous way of virtue you can achieve. You're mistaken. All of these will add. It's the reason you pray that you will have a longer life extended when good deeds, because they will add you more. You should not wish for death. Because the more you live, you will get more opportunity to repent, more opportunity to do things. Unless the situation is so that you pray to Allah, if my extended life is dangerous for me, then take me before. That's the only thing. And that's only if there's a bala. General fitna situation is so miserable, personally or society or something like that. That's only in these extreme periods. But always that should not be your regular prayer. Don't wish for death. And don't ask for it. Ask for extended of life in good deeds, with good conclusion. Okay, finish with the admonishments. Now we go to questions.
Okay, if anyone's got any questions, far away. Okay,
Yeah.
everyone's quiet. Let's schedule.
I think we explained many things. I think it's concerning, but if they have other questions,
Yeah.
plus
Plus, it's coming up to 11 o'clock anyway. I mean, we all got to wake up for Fajr, inshallah. Sheikh, Wednesday, inshallah, still on recording?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, if anything, we give you a call. But prepare things properly and so on.
No problem, inshallah. Yeah. In worst case scenario, if I might be coming down with a flu or something, but if it does take hold, then I'll call you to cancel, inshallah.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. So that's it. Any other questions? Some people asked questions before, but they are very highly private. So we do not need to repeat them. None of them is general interest. Or was there anything of general interest? No, there was very specific in certain situations, things like that. That's the issue of carer. It has a good aspect for Jannah, but no need to repeat it.
No,
that one may be working as a carer for a kafir and so on, receiving money for that, whatever, or as a charity or something like that. And this person need to be served food and so on, which may contain khanzir and so on. You are not eating, you're not say that's no problem. The only issue with khamr is that you may be regarding carrying it from the fridge and putting for him is like carrying khamr. But really, you are carrying for food for the one for caring. So if you don't go into ritualistic, Talmudic way of thinking, that should be no problem. That's the only thing there. So that's not a problem. But because people have gone to extreme ritualism instead of indicating that deep meaning and being really understanding what worship means, what being abid, Is not being abid, is obeying Allah commands. Not that khamr is haram or not haram. If Allah commands is haram, perfect. And this condemned, we are condemned. If Allah command is not khanzir, don't eat it, and don't buy and sell the edible part of it. But skin is not edible part, it can be tanned. According to various evidences, that's the way you are worshipping. Not only below khanzir, it's like it has something in itself. No, it's the divine command who allocated what to be done, what is only the eating and the edible parts of it, which including fat and so on. These are edible parts. That's the haram to eat and to use. And because it's haram to eat and benefit from using, it's haram to buy and sell. That's it. Own it and sell it. You are not allowed to own it. It's not an unlimited ownership. And if you buy it, also you're taking into illegitimate ownership. That's it. Then you are abid. Not going through the obsession with things like that. From this mentality, you can analyze the problem, you will find no major problem. Yeah, there's some issues you may think about it cautiously, if you are a cautious person, no doubt about that, but not that it becomes in every job and everything, for example. Like we see so many, what's about working a guard as a bank? You're not already usury, you're protecting the bank with these people money there, some of it legitimate, some illegitimate, some action of the bank are legitimate, you're protecting the bank with voting money, which is legitimately belongs to certain people, or to other people who in their hand and there's no ownership, although they are punishable because they ended by riba. But they are punishable, they ended by riba, not you. You are protecting that. As long as it's in their hand, in a system which allow that for them, you're working as a guard for the building. And that no criminal come and snatch the money away. That's all what you're doing. You're not doing usury. No, you are protecting usury and supporting the bank. That's not it. You're protecting people's wealth and they are punished for having that wealth earned by part of it by illegitimate means. But this has nothing to do. It is in their hand now, and openly as you see it, it's their money, and they can request someone to work a guard. The same when Ali ibn Abi Talib worked for that Jewish woman, and she was very harsh in giving the reward and the salary. He worked because he saw the Muslim very hungry, so he went and negotiated with her to fill buckets. For every bucket she used one date. That woman is absolutely stingy, and so he did so many buckets that he got 20 or 30, and then his shoulder started hurting, and he took that and bring to the Messenger of Allah. He did not ask, did you get the money by selling khamr, or did you get it by having girls work for you as prostitute? That was common in the Arabs. That's one of major, there's even stories, but I don't have that established, that the main money of the cruises, Qarun, the Qarun of Musa, not the later Qarun. The main money of Qarun came from that he was employing his servant girls as prostitutes. It was at the time good income. It's a good way of doing things. Nobody asked about that. And he didn't ask. But I will go in infinite regress. Oh, her money maybe. Money is not haram. She earned it in a haram way. She's punishable today, maybe. Or even if she's punishable for her kufr, but leave that out of sight. But in her hand now, it looks like in her ownership, what people in their hand is there until a court decides that they have stolen, that does not take it away from them. But it's there. It's worth of protection. She tell you these without three. Maybe you got it in a legitimate way. But at the moment, she is the owner, and everyone acknowledges the owner, and you met with her as the owner of the farm trees. Say, let me work for you, getting the debts. How she built it, how she earned it, if there's riba, definitely there will be riba. People were dealing with riba, especially the Jews. There was not a question. I'm doing a legitimate work. And she is the owner of that, as apparently visible to everyone in Hukam al-Dunya. So I do the work, and that she is so tough in negotiations, a nasty woman. That's another issue. So doesn't make your earning and your debt. And what Allah told him the story, and he approved it and took the dates. And thank him for that he suffered so much to give him dates. There was no discussion about where did the woman get her money. Is it legitimate? Is it not legitimate? Does he have a brother? It's not matter of discussion in the first place. It's wrong to discuss that. Clean your mindset from this mentality of that leads to this and disconnect to this and disconnect to this until everything, until it comes, for example, someone claims that a man is so pious in Pakistan, one of the mashayikh, that he even doubt that the clothing bought in the market may be stained with haram. So ultimately he have a plantation in which he gets cotton and his wife and they weaving it and so on. I say, but they're weaving with a needle and with the equipment which may be having haram if this idea is valid in the pair. This will lead to nowhere. Everything is al-haram. And even that extremism started even with some people who got obsessed because they don't know how to understand things properly, how Sharia is structured, is that there's some scholars of the 3rd century and so on, they needed to write books, حل المكاسب, because people say all earning and so on, under this illegitimate government, oppressive government, are haram. It's making life impossible. Meaning you are obliged, if someone come, for example, to buy from the market, are you employed by the government? Are you supporting their oppression? Your money is stained. Money is not stained. You don't need to ask. He has his guilt. If he tells you that and brag about it, then there may be a point to say, no, I'm not going to buy and sell with you. You are a man committing haram, and you don't want to deal with people who committing haram. Not that the dinar in your hand are halal. The dinar are halal, is ownership. That he ended by haram way does not mean that dinar became stained. There's no stamp on it or spot saying, oh, haram, haram, wash, I am haram. No. Dinar is a dinar. So he's come. You're not obliged, but you should avoid even. Like one asked, but there's another issue, but attached to that, so the obsession of the people in India, Pakistan with halal food. He asked one of the tabi'een. He said, what I do about the foods and market. If you go to the market, because they have split food for the areas which we dedicated for the code, they are like in a confederation for the Christian. What you find in the markets for the people of the book, Allah said their food is permissible. What you find in the market of the Muslim, eat and don't ask. Because if you open the door of asking, it will end nowhere. It go in infinite regress. Yeah. Because if you open the gate, who will guarantee that the one who slaughtered that or selling him is he nominated from people in the book? He has a cross on his chest, but he's an atheist. He just did it for social reason. Then he should not be from the people in the book. You start digging yourself in a hole, you will never get out of it. And there's one ask him, but the people in the book is the issue of that. I say, I hear them. I was present when they slaughtered in the name of Isa or something like that, or the Father and Son said, pronounce an shirk. Say, don't you think when Allah said their food is permissible for us, don't you think Allah knew that? You're teaching Allah what they didn't know? He knows that very well. And say, طعامهم حل لكم. Just shut up and eat. Don't try second guess Allah's command. But that's the problem, which the mentality of the Jews, of the Talmud, even claiming in one Talmudic story that they negotiated, they even confront Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with discussion, and ultimately he admitted that they were right and he was defeated. That you go to an absolutely unacceptable type of kufr. That scholars can defeat Allah in argument. This meaning reason is gone, finished. There's no more reason available. Everything has collapsed. So try to avoid this. As I mentioned that just right. We have to get this mentality, clean our brain from this, with this filth of the centuries and for the inclination. But it's very difficult because people usually, as Allah said, you will follow the sunnah of the people before you step by step, even if this happened, you will do. And even if they go, even a lizard hole will go behind them. We said the Jews that, hadith has said it multiple occasions. The Jews, the Christians, so what other people, in matter of religious and so on, you will follow their steps. And that's exactly what happened by this hair splitting in the fuqaha and joke, almost reaching the level of jokes. And that the blunders have been committed is that they needed to develop what's called al-hiyya al-fiqhiyya, to give you tricks to get out of trouble. You should not be in trouble in the first place, meaning your deduction or original prohibition must be wrong. You don't need a trick. Allah is not fooled by tricks. There's some problem there. Instead of going back, I said, because in the situation it is haram, what to do, what is the trick, and so on. No. Meaning your original conclusion was mistaken. Go correct the original one. You don't need to develop a trick how to get out of the problem of tahrim and tahleel. You don't need. Reading the Sharia is the solution there. Don't need for tricks. And then another occasion, and the Persia and Faris, obviously in matter of governorship and running the state. And they say which people will follow the Faris or Rome? They say, who are the people in matter of managing the state? So adopted from them the issues of kingdom and the symbolism and everything. Well, Rasul was adamant to defeat that. Even when they prayed, standing by him, said, You did almost like the Ajim, the Persian, when they stood in the presence of their kings. Even that is not acceptable. He tried to educate the people. Their symbolism, their style, their taste is not ours. But the people did not listen to that later on. So-called Khulafa adopted their symbolism, their gods, their having people with spears on the door and possibly killing and beating the people up and so on, which is the opposite of the Hadi and the way. They insisted they dictate that they have guard and so on. The person was guarded until he was protected and then he relieved the guard. That's dictated by necessity. But there should not be symbolism. There's no reason to have first door, second door, someone admitting you, ushering you, ushering you, ushering you. This is a symbolism of the way of governorship and administration of the empires of Paris and Rome, not the way of Islam. The way of Islam is different. And so on. So anyway, today turned out a day of of admonishment, and what's important from time to time is not to stay only theoretical, but see the practical and the issue related to da'wah and how you feel it, how you fit yourself in the universe correctly. And the way you fit, the best way and the most calming way internally is to understand La ilaha illallah and whatever we emerge from that in the correct way, even in the basic level. Then you have internal peace and calmness at least, and direction in life, proper direction for all eternity. There will be minor direction and person choices on permissible things, that's fine, but it will not be exhausting your life. Yeah, I want to be a great doctor because my village and my people are suffering for a certain disease. I want to study in that area so I can help them. It's a good intention. But you're doing that because you want to help them, and still in your mind, this be charitable to them. I'm doing due to the issue of connecting the relation of kin, and this is pleased to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. While like this kafir director of movies is doing that just to get mind away from rotting. What a huge difference. This one knows that the final target is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When these are done, even if it's mubah, it's bring good money, that's good, no problem. It's a good intention, no problem with that. But if you add it to that, it will be sharif with my people, and so that will give it more value, make it more ihsan. Okay, enough with admonishment. So should we conclude? Close down?
Yes, sure. Thank you. So next week, page 62, carrying on the same chapter, inshallah.
Yeah, keep record for that. So next week, so although we did not get something bad, so we have to ask for forgiveness, but any majlis in which people discuss and maybe something, then it's desirable to say at the end of the masjid, Subhanak Allah bihamdik astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, because in the masjid there may be some words or something which should have been said, and things like that, or some blabbery which is not worth, and so on. Maybe something was there. So Subhanak Allah bihamdik astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد وبارك على محمد وآل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد وتصبحون على خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.